BK and Ferrario are broadcasting live from the E&B Granite Studios at the Centene Community Ice Center on 101 ESPN. E&B Granite, Bernie Federko's only choice for granite countertops, cabinets, and flooring.
As the Blues throw, Rick White passing on the line. Closing right in on goal. Charlie Lindgren sprawls out. He scores! Broberg again came in unmolested on the far side. And he took it to his backhand, Dubois style, and he's got a pair of goals. Now trying to trickle a pass to the slot for Holloway. Holloway to Schenn. Rick White pass to Suter. Now Ryan Suter's Richard scores! It deflected into a screen, and the Blues retake the lead at 17-24. St. Louis back with the lead on a tip-in by Dylan Holloway. Where Sandin took over, wrists it way high, and then Suter will eat the puck to Schenn. Schenn will play it from the far boards of his zone, so behind the net to Letty, and he'll leave it behind to Hofer, and this hockey game is history.
Well, it feels good, you know, but most importantly, it's the way we're doing it. Like, we're in control of games right now, and these 3 wins, and we got to keep it up. We got to stay with the process.
Oh, interesting. They're sticking with the process as BK and Ferrario is with you here on a Friday at 11:06. Your time check brought to you by Clarkson Jewelers, an officially licensed Rolex jeweler. With Alex and T-Bone on BK, we're broadcasting live at the E&B Granite Studios out of the Centene Community Ice Center. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to give them a standing ovation today. I might be alone. That's a 3-game winning streak.
No, sit down.
I'm so proud of this team, man. It doesn't count.
To do it.
It doesn't
never
count
believed it
because of the process. They went with Joe Hofer in net last night, which means that obviously
no,
that
the results
is not
don't
a game
matter.
that matters for the Blues. But in all seriousness, hot damn, dude. You have now recorded a point against Winnipeg since the break, and should have had 2 if not for that late goal in regulation with the 6-on-5. Colorado went 3-1 in regulation in that one. Last night on the road against Washington, I don't care if they had their backup goalie in net. I don't care if Tom Wilson didn't play in the game. That is one of the best teams in the NHL, the second best offense in the league, and you held them to 2 goals, and you were the better team from start to finish last night. The Blues have been playing some inspired hockey since they have returned from the break. Alex, my question to you is a very simple one. Are you ready to buy in? We said all along, give us 3 games in a row and then we'll talk. They gave us 3 games in a row. Now we're ready to talk. Are you ready to believe in this?
Yes, damn it. I'm putting my heart on my sleeve. I'm putting it out there. I'm checking in on the fishes that are out there in the sea, and I'm expecting to be hurt again. I can't deny it. Like, you just win against Winnipeg, Colorado, and the Washington Capitals. Those are 3 teams that I think a lot of people would say have really good shots at winning the Stanley Cup this year. 2 of them specifically in Winnipeg and Washington. Those are juggernauts right now in the National Hockey League. And you were 1 pulled goaltender, weird bounce in the 3rd period away from beating that team. But regardless, if I look at the Winnipeg game, if I look at the Colorado game, not the Seattle one because that one doesn't matter, and the Washington Capitals game, they did every single little thing that Jim Montgomery has been harping on since he took over on November 23rd. He's talked about coming out of the gate quick. Well, they did that last night. They were out shooting Washington 5-0 in the first 5 minutes of that first period. He's talked about winning the goal lines. Well, last night, Washington is now the 5th consecutive team that the Blues have held to fewer than 6 high-danger scoring chances. So much so that the Washington Capitals were plus 40 in the 3rd period. They had scored 40 more goals than they have allowed in the 3rd period. And the Blues held that team to 5 shots on goal and 1 high-danger scoring chance. And that was with their goaltender pulled about 3 minutes in the 3rd period. They've also gone to the front of the net, scoring goals. Colton Parayko's just decided he's going to be a power forward for the rest of this season, and he's picking up 14 goals. Everything what the Blues have done from the Chicago Blackhawks victory that they had to come from behind in 2 separate times to Winnipeg, to Colorado, to Seattle, to Washington, you're starting to build that confidence. It's what Jim Montgomery said last night postgame. He said, look, when you're winning, you're confident in the style that you're playing, and you keep playing that way. Could this fall flat on its face this weekend? Probably. But I'm going to invest in what I'm seeing right now, and I'm not seeing a team that's getting lucky because the opposition is playing poorly. I'm seeing a team that's making the opposition play poorly, and that's a massive factor into all of this.
They are having a good process right now, which is leading to good results.
The results don't matter. It's like, whose line is it anyway? The points are made up.
the high danger chances against over their last 4 games. 3 of these games against legitimate contenders, and the Avs, the Capitals, and the Winnipeg Jets. 6-5, 6-4. That is a total of 21 high danger chances against in the 4 games since the Blues came back from that Four Nations face-off break. The reason why this matters, they gave up 27 high danger chances in the 2 games prior to the break against the Panthers and the Oilers. So when they went up against 2 legitimate contenders, they got destroyed, dude. Absolutely rocked. And then over the last 4, you've gone up against 3 contenders, and you look like the better team, and you're keeping them out of those dirty areas. And that's what Jim Montgomery wants. Alex, when he was hired, we talked to a number of different former players from him, and all of them basically said the same thing. Yeah, Jim Montgomery, he's kind of known for this offensive stuff, but that's not necessarily his jam. The truth about Jim Montgomery, man, he was a goal suppression coach to a T. When he got to Dallas, that's what they fixed.
Yeah, Ben Bishop told us that he said, I don't think I saw an odd man rush for the rest of the season when Jim Montgomery took over.
He eliminates odd man rushes, and he handles in front of the net. Those are the 2 things that he's going to do for you. And for the most part, early on, he did that. And then things got a little out of structure. They got a little away from their game. And now they're getting back to it. They focused on a few things during that break. Jordan Bennington had a great quote last night where he said, hey, I feel like I missed something. I got back, and like there's just a different vibe around here.
He said, I feel like they had a team meeting without me.
Yeah, and he came back, and they're playing great right now, dude. Yeah. So am I ready to buy in? Am I ready to truly believe in this team? My answer, unfortunately, is no.
Oh, come on, man.
Because I've seen this before. I saw this when Jim Montgomery was hired. When they fired Bannister and hired Montgomery, they had a really nice 4 or 5 game stretch where they were playing just like this. It looked almost the exact same. And then it fell apart again. And they looked like, once again, a below-average team. So I need more. I need more, and I think Doug Armstrong probably needs more before he's truly ready to buy in on what the Blues are selling. So if they do this again over the weekend against LA and against Dallas, and then next week if you do it again on Wednesday against LA, yeah, then I will be ready to buy in. But I need more than a 3 to 4 game stretch for me to truly believe, but I will give them their props. Over this 4-game stretch, they have been nothing short of spectacular, and they needed every ounce of that effort, because if they didn't have every single one of those points that they've had so far, they'd be completely out of it. So they deserve the credit for getting themselves even back into this conversation, but to go a bridge further and say, am I believing in them as a true playoff contender yet? No, I'm not there yet.
Now, I'll push back a little bit, because this isn't the same that they did when Montgomery took over and they had that 5-game point streak. I don't know if you guys remember that New Jersey Devils game. They looked ugly in that game. They scored the first 2 goals, and then from there, New Jersey just swarmed them. The expected goals in that game for the Devils was 3. They had 6 high danger chances in that one, 21 total scoring chances. And then the following game, the one that they lost to the Philadelphia Flyers, they didn't play well to the 3rd period. They were sandwiched between a really good game against the Rangers, which was Jim Montgomery's game, and a really good game against the Winnipeg Jets, and you kind of lucked into the other 3 points. Man, they didn't luck into anything with these games. They were the better team than the Winnipeg Jets. They just got beat because they didn't shut down the 3rd period. They were the better team against the Colorado Avalanche, so much so that Jared Bednar was trying to juggle up his top 2 lines to try and find something that would work. They were absolutely better than the Seattle Kraken. And guys, last night, the Washington Capitals had only lost back-to-back games in regulation twice. And the Blues, this wasn't the Washington Capitals lost in Calgary and had to travel back to D.C., and then they got in late and they had to get accustomed. That team lost on Tuesday, and they were sitting in their own area. They're sleeping in their beds, in their home, waiting to take on the Blues who were traveling to them. This is different than that 5-game point streak that they had when Jim Montgomery took over, because they played poorly in a couple of those games. I haven't seen them play poorly yet in 5 straight.
Four. That game against
the
Chicago
one, yeah.
I'm going to put that into a separate category, but if you just have a clean break since the break.
On that one. Yeah, 1, 2, 3, Cancun.
Yes, they have played really, really well in these last 4 games. I just need more, man, because I'm snake bitten with this team. I've seen them go through with this same core group of players, whether you want to call it that early portion of the Jim Montgomery era or even going further back than that over the past couple of seasons. We've seen them have moments where it looks good. The word of the day for the St. Louis Blues over the break was consistency.
Oh, okay.
It was consistency. They needed to get to a consistent version of their game. And for 4 games, they have. For 4 games, though. The season is 82 games long. They've done it for 4. That's 5% of the season. I just need more. I need 3 more games because that's all you can really get prior to the deadline. And the reason why I'm bringing up those 3 is because that's when you got to make some decisions. That's when you have to decide if you're Doug Armstrong, what is our plan? How are we going to approach this? Are we still considering selling off assets? Are we just going to stay with the group that we have here and see what they have in them? Or do we even consider going out and adding to what we currently have on this team? I will say this. Booch and Thomas look rejuvenated. I don't know what changed over the break. Maybe they just simply weren't healthy whenever they previously were playing for the Blues, and they needed the 2 weeks off. That is entirely possible, and if that's the case, dude, that changes everything about how you view this team. Booch has a point in 5 straight. Thomas has an assist in 8 straight games. He's the first Blue to do that since 2003. Pretty decent coming out of this break. I would also add another thing. They seem to have a different version right now of Zach Bolduc. He looks like a really good player for them. And Jim Montgomery has mentioned this in some of his post games yesterday. One of those goals was created by Zach Bolduc. So stuff just looks different on the ice right now. You've mentioned the defense and how much they're getting involved in the offense. It looks really good. But you're still 3 games back of the, or 3 points back of the Canucks. You're still 2 back of the Flames. You're still a point back of the Utah Hockey Club. I just need to see more.
I agree with that. I think, though they have played great for these 4 games, and Thomas and Booch do look great, Bolduc looks good defensively, they look great, the defense are up and playing offensively. I mean, you said it perfectly. It's been 4 games out of 60 so far this season. And what you've seen them play, consistent hockey that's been this good. Like, sure, I mean, I agree with what you said, Alex. Like, that earlier stretch with Montgomery was a little bit different. But if I'm going to go by that, then I'm still going to say they have had, like, 6 games in which they've played just, like, a really great hockey this season. I just think you need to show more. Though it is good to celebrate this 3-game win streak first of the season, and, hey, it's a, 5-game point streak if I'm not mistaken. That's fine and dandy, but, like, the Sharks are the worst in the NHL, and they've won 3 games already this season, right? Everybody can have in the NHL a solid 4 to 5 game stretch. It's a matter of, do you get to that next level of, hey, instead of a 5-game point streak, maybe it's a 10-game point streak, and you go 7-3 in that spurt. Now, they don't have time to do it.
That's what they need.
And they don't have time to really do it with just 3 more games. But, hey, you've got to capture points in these. I agree. For me, for Army to change his mind on towards buying, I would say, would be win the next 3. You win the next 3, I think maybe you're there.
I will say this, Alex. If they win, let's say it's 2 of the next 3, because I think no matter what, they probably need to do that. I think really now what the decision is not sell versus, like, stand pat. Now you're teetering towards stand pat and then potentially leaning him towards buying. I think, like, if there's a needle that can go in one of these 3 different directions, right? Is it leaning towards sell? Is it leaning towards stand pat? Is it leaning towards buy? It was hard leaning towards the sell 2 weeks ago. And I think he was willing to listen on anything because it looked like everything was broken here. And now, since the break, what the Blues players have done, and now it's on them, is they've found a way to tilt that more towards, okay, we've got the players internally that can keep us in this thing. Let's just stick with this group of guys. And if they win their next 3, if they do what you're saying, Alex, and they continue to play this way, now we can potentially even lean it toward buying, and the decision becomes, do we stay with what we've got or do we buy? That's what this stretch of games between when the Four Nations face-off break was and the deadline, that's what it allowed them to do. It gave them a little bit of runway. They had to take advantage of it. Thus far, they have. Credit where it's due. I'm not trying to diminish anything that we've seen because it's been really fun to watch, man. But I do need to see a little bit more before we're willing to go all the way in on the St. Louis Blues.
Yeah, I can't deny the fact that this team's doing it too little too late, and it's what they've suffered from for the last couple of seasons. So, like, you guys are spot on with that one. But what I can say is they've got points in 7 of their last 8 games, and that's what I was asking for back in January, back in December. It's like you got to go on a point streak of like 10 games, and guess what? You got 2 more. If you can find a way to pick up points in both of these games, if you get 3 out of 4 points in these 2 games against the Kings and the Stars, that's points in almost 10 straight games. That's the stretch that we were talking about. Are they doing it too late? Absolutely. You should have done it back in January. But maybe health was a problem because Thomas and Buchnevich and Philip Broberg are all playing like they were at the beginning of the season, and you've got a very confident Parayko and Binnington. So they got to sort out their own ish in terms of why for the first 3 months of the season you guys can't play like this. But if you play in the point streak of picking up 6 of 7 or 5 of 6, Cool. Do that the rest of the way, and at least you're going to put yourself in the conversation.
With Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. If you guys want to get involved in the show, we've got Ask Us Anything coming up at the end of this hour. 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line to get your questions in for Ask Us Anything sports or otherwise. We'll have some questions for our friend Mike McKenna at 11:30. We've got Erik Kratz, the former Major League Baseball catcher, who will join the show. He was at Cardinals camp yesterday. He's going to join us coming up in the 12 o'clock hour. Speaking of the Cardinals, do want to talk about them coming up next. Should they consider developing their pitchers out of the bullpen this year? It's something Ollie Marmol kind of referenced yesterday while he was on with Foul Territory. We'll let you hear what he had to say next year on 101 ESPN.
Broadcasting live from the Centene Community Ice Center inside the E&B Granite Studios. This is BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN. E&B Granite, Bernie Federko's only choice for granite countertops, cabinets, and flooring. We're flying down to Florida for a spring training report on 101 ESPN. Our Redbird Spring Training Report is brought to you by Rawlings. Visit the all-new Rawlings experience at Westport Plaza today.
T-Bone, I'm BK. So we got to talk about the Cardinals. Yesterday, Alex, Foul Territory was at Cardinals camp, and they did a lot of features. They talked with Ollie Marmol. They talked with Derek Gould, talked to a couple of others, and gave a good brief on what the vibe is currently at Cardinals camp. We'll hear from Erik Kratz, who was at Cardinals camp for Foul Territory in the 12 o'clock hour. But I did want to get to a couple of the cuts that I found to be most interesting from their conversations down in Jupiter yesterday. We'll start with this. Ollie Marmol was asked about what he sees from young guys during camp and if this is an opportunity for them to find out which of those young guys is going to be able to break camp with the big league roster. Here's what he had to say. It starts with an answer about J.J. Weatherholt and then continues from there.
JJ fits into that, not so much as that, man, we got to see him so he can break camp with us, as much as like there's something special about this kid. I want to see him as much as possible, because you want to see them do well, but you also want to see them fail a little bit. You want to see them run into some trouble and see how they come through that and how they react to it. So that's been fun. And then from the left side, the Jerpy kid, we've seen him in the past, but there's some funk to him. So seeing him in shorter stints so far, it's been interesting, and definitely want to see more of that as well.
Alex, we've seen them do this. I found the Cooper Jerpy part of that quote to be far more interesting than the J.J. Weatherholt part of it. We've heard them talk about it in the past. They want to see these young guys fail to see how they deal with it. That was part of the selling point on Jordan Walker when he reached the big leagues that first season with the Cardinals, and then we know what's happened from there. But the Cooper Jerpy part to me is really interesting, because we talked about this in regards to Gordon Graceffo. What do you do with him? They've done this in the past with Zach Thompson and Matthew Liberatore. Jordan Hicks emerged quickly and became a bullpen arm for them. Same thing was true of Ryan Helsley. They shuttle these guys into the Major League bullpen. The problem at times in the past has been then they just get pigeonholed as relievers and never make that transition. However, that might be changing now, because we saw over the past couple of seasons, Andre Palante was a guy that came up as a reliever to the big league club after being a starter in the minors, and then he did transition back to the major league rotation. Cooper Jerpy is a really funky lefty. He's got that sidewinding delivery. The velo's not crazy, but the stuff plays up because he is so deceptive. Whether it is Jerpy or Gordon Graceffo, Michael McGreevy has gotten some conversation in this regard as well. Alex, do you think the Cardinals could potentially go back to their roots this year with some of their young pitchers, the way they did with Waino, the way they did with Lance Lynn? We've seen them do this with others. Do they go back to their roots potentially, Carlos Martinez, and start having some of these starter prospects begin their major league career out of the bullpen? Is that something you're open to?
I'm open to it, yes. But it's like it's selective. Right? Like, I wouldn't do this with McGreevy.
Agreed.
McGreevy looks like a starter already. McGreevy should be in your rotation now. And if he's not, put him in AAA and then tell him you're going to be up here in a month or two. Quinn Matthews? Hell no. No way. You're a starter. If you're not going to be on the Major League roster, which you probably should be, you start in the minors. But if we're talking about a Gordon Graceffo who hasn't really shown me enough to where it's like, yeah, I could see you being a starter right now, or a Cooper Jerpy who haven't been there and said, like, yes, put him in the rotation. If you've got good stuff, then yeah, absolutely put him in the rotation. But don't yo-yo this. That's the other problem with this. The Cardinals do this, and Zach Thompson's the first one that comes to mind for me. Matthew Liberatore is another one. Yep. You're a starter. You're a bullpen guy. Starter, bullpen, starter, bullpen, starter, bullpen. There's no development anymore. It's you're going to be this, and then you're going to be this. You're what we need right now because we didn't do a good enough job to fill that void. No, what you need, Cardinals, is you need consistent depth. You need a conveyor belt of starting pitchers that are available for you in the next couple of years. So I'll be selective with this. A guy like Gordon Graceffo, I don't really know where I see you fitting into this rotation within the next couple of years. So, yeah, let's get some reps, and maybe you'll be ready next year and you'll surprise some people. Cooper Jerpy, this team's overhauled with left-handed guys right now. Quinn Matthews is probably the next big thing for the starting rotation. So, yeah, let's see what you look like in the bullpen because, frankly, none of these other lefties really get me all excited about what the future looks like. John King, JoJo Romero. But when it comes to McGreevy and Quinn Matthews, do not screw up their development because those should be number 2s and number 3s for you next year.
I agree with the being selective on some of these guys. I think if you're going to do this, and though it is a kind of a development tool, it's more of looking at some of these guys and going, man, we've got to get answers on them. And the best way to do that is probably the bullpen. And then if they're really good there, then if we don't have starters like Graceffo, for example, you can put him in the bullpen, and the reason I don't mind doing that is it's time to start getting answers on what Gordon Graceffo is because he's probably done with AAA. So it's probably time for the big leagues, but he's not going to fit into the rotation, so why not put him in the bullpen? And then you can get some answers. And then maybe you can decide, okay, his stuff plays so well out of the bullpen, why would we take him out of that role? Or maybe some of the other guys that you're expecting, like maybe Quinn Matthews stalls out a little bit, or Tink Hintz doesn't develop into the starter that you think in 2 years. So maybe he's a guy that then shifts to the bullpen to try and develop the big league level. Now you can then say, hey, you know what, Graceffo, now it's your turn to stretch out once we get to spring training and really start as a starter. Cooper Jerpy, same thing. Like when we talk about pitching prospects for the St. Louis Cardinals, Jerpy gets kind of forgotten. And by the way, he's kind of old for a prospect. He's now 24 years old coming into this season. So they're getting close to time to where they need to start to get some answers on him. And he's not really built up because he's been dealing with injuries. He hasn't thrown 100 innings in his big league career in the minor leagues.
That's combined over the last 2 years.
Yeah. So they've got to get answers on him. But the other thing, too, for me is, like, some of these guys, if you're going to push them to the bullpen, I think their stuff needs to play when they get there. Graceffo's stuff, first off, he has trouble maintaining velo. Screams bullpen arm. So it's okay to put him there, and his stuff can play up. Same with Cooper Jerpy. He's funky. He doesn't have great velo, but he gets strikeouts. So that's a guy that can play in the bullpen. McGreevy, I just don't, like, if they did want to go that route, which I think would be ridiculous, I agree he should be in this year's rotation. He doesn't play up in the bullpen.
I would rather him be in the AAA rotation.
I agree.
McGreevy?
Yeah.
McGreevy and Matthews should be in your AAA rotation.
I think McGreevy should be at the big league level, but if they're not going to do that, I actually don't hate this as much. I think he should be in the rotation. Full stop. If they're not going to do it, I don't think it's as bad as like if they don't start Ivan Herrera 2 out of every 3 games. I think that would be a massive disappointment for them. If they decide, McGreevy, hey, we're going to go ahead and go with our starters, our veteran guys, it is what it is. It's frustrating, but it is what it is. And somebody else on the text line brought up, like, I think it's crazy that they're doing this. Why not just start their young pitchers in the rotation? I've actually kind of come around on this. They need depth. Every team in Major League Baseball is eventually going to need more than 5 starters. And if they decided, hey, we're going with all of these guys, like Steven Matz, hey, you're in the bullpen. If a month and a half from now you end up having an injury in your rotation, there is nobody to backfill, really. And in that scenario, you're stuck. And you need to basically build Steven Matz back up on the fly, which is something that this team has had to do over the past with Andre Palante having to go back down to AAA to do it, or Jordan Hicks, who is literally ramping up at the major league level. I don't want to have to go through that process again, which would happen with Matz, and then potentially you deal with the injury issues with him. I just get him into a role. Let's see what happens there. The guys that I would be okay with in this regard, Gordon Graceffo, I think fits into this. You guys mentioned him. Jerpy, we've talked about him. TK Roby would be another. I don't think you do that on opening day. But if you get midway through the season, he's had a ton of injury issues in the past. I don't think he's going to be able to get to like 100-plus innings this year for them in the minor leagues. If his stuff is playing up, he looks good, yeah, I'm fine with him going ahead and saying, you know what, we'll go ahead and transition you to the bullpen for the rest of this season at the big league level, and then next year you can compete for a roster spot out of the rotation. And then Tink Hintz would be the other. Another guy that's had injury issues in the past. I think he should not start in the Cardinals major league roster in the bullpen. Put him in Double-A this year. Just let him rerun it. See what it looks like at Double-A. If it looks great for a month and a half, send him up to Triple-A. But later on this year, you get to June or July, now you can talk about putting him into the bullpen as well. Those are guys that I'd be okay with it. McGreevy, Matthews, no chance. Their value to you now and in the future is going to be as starting pitching.
Yeah, I don't know if I would do it with Roby yet. I would be open-minded to it. To me, he's on the Tink Hintz plan still, which is, hey, we're still handling it with some kid gloves.
To be clear, I'm not talking about that for opening day.
Sure, I agree.
That's like June, July, talk about that.
I still think for now, though, like I would plan on Roby being a starter in the minors all season long and not even consider him coming up to the bullpen.
Even though last year he pitched a total of 38 innings for you?
Yeah.
He's probably not going to get more than 60 or 70 innings this year.
I think they're going to probably try and push him for about 100. That would be my guess. Because they're really pushing their guys down in the minor leagues.
He hasn't pitched 100 innings in a season since 2022.
Yeah, I think that's probably where they're going to
60 since 22.
I think that's probably what they're going to try and do, though. Like, it'd be really hard to even try and just limit him to 60. I think, but I think for him, try and keep him on the Hintz plan, which is, hey, let's do one more year trying you as a starter. If injuries do pop up, then now it probably is time to really have a serious conversation about a push to the bullpen.
With Tanner Hendrickson and Alex Ferrario, I'm Brandon Kiley. If you guys are missing anything from the show, you can always check it out afterwards at 101ESPN.com or the free 101 ESPN app. That's where the podcasts are hosted. But coming up next, Mike McKenna. He's a former NHL goalie. He joins us each and every week here on BK and Ferrario. We'll ask him the question that we started with today. Is he ready to buy in on the Blues as a legit playoff threat at this point? He joins us next here on 101 ESPN. Alex, this is the time of year that I love betting because we've got college basketball going, getting close to the tournament. If you want to get your futures bets down, for me personally, I like Mizzou at 35-1 to potentially win the NCAA tournament. I don't know how likely it is, but I want to have my money on it if it happens. You can also bet on the Blues going into this weekend. LA, Dallas, you got a couple of games there for you. You can bet money lines. They've got those tight money line splits. The place where I do all of it is over on the Circa Sports app in the state of Illinois. They're going to have the best odds possible for you, especially on those large market bets. They always have the tight money line splits, and they're going to make sure to take care of you. When you win over on Circa, you're going to win the most money possible.
Yeah, put the parlay down this weekend. Back-to-back games for the Blues. Money line for the Blues on both of them, but also take the under against the Kings and the under against the Stars. That's a 4-leg parlay you can put together and bring in the most money possible thanks to Circa Sports Illinois. They're so confident in their brand, they tell you to go check out those other sports betting apps because they know once you see the lines, you'll come right back to Circa Sports Illinois. Plus, when there's issues that come up, which don't happen very often, you're actually talking to people with Circa Sports brand rather than talking to a robot to fix whatever issues you might have. So download the app today and get your sports betting underway with Circa Sports Illinois. If you or somebody you know may have a problem with gambling, call 1-800-GAMBLER or text ILGAMB to 833-234.
ESPN Sports Center.
I'm Jordan Deacon. The Sports Center update is driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. Yesterday, the Cardinals won 8-4 over the Marlins at spring training. They're back in action today with first pitch at 12:05 taking on the Astros. Last night, the Blues won against the Washington Capitals by a score of 5-2. They're off tonight and back on action tomorrow with a back-to-back weekend. The Kings are in town with a pregame at 6 and puck drop at 7 on Saturday. And then the Blues head to Dallas to take on the Stars with pregame at 4 and puck drop at 5 on Sunday. You can hear all of that action right here on 101 ESPN. I'm Jordan Deacon. The Sports Center update was driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. See them at londoff.com. Chevy, together we drive. Are you kidding me?
This is BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN. We're broadcasting live from the E&B Granite Studios at the Centene Community Ice Center. E&B Granite, Bernie Fedurko's only choice for granite countertops, cabinets, and flooring. We're going between the pipes with former NHL goaltender Mike McKenna.
Between the Pipes is refreshed by Macadoodle Spirits, fine wine, beer, and cigars. Now open in Darden Prairie.
Alex and T-Bone on BK. Happy to go out to the Callier and Thompson hotline as we do each and every Friday here on BK and Ferrario to be joined by Mike McKenna. He's a former NHL goalie. He joins us on behalf of Macadoodles. He'll tell you about the great people over at Macadoodles and what they're up to here at the end of our segment today. But, Mike, we got to begin with the obvious. Blues with another win last night. They have now earned points in each of their 4 games since the Four Nation face-off break, and they've been awesome in these games. It's not just the results are going their way. The process looks great. I asked this question in our open, and I'll ask it to you right now. Are you ready to buy into them as a legitimate playoff threat at this point, or do you need to see more, Mike?
Let me take a huge sip of coffee, and it's great to hear your voice. This is really cool to see. I mean, 3 games in a row, they finally won the 3 straight. The Blues have looked convincing doing it. Now, are they going to make the playoffs here? That's what you're asking me. Sitting 3 points out with not a lot of hockey left, 20 games, 22 games, is it doable? My biggest question here is who they're going to leapfrog, you know? And that's the hardest thing. The Blues are a better team than Utah in my mind. I really believe that. I think they're also, you know, at this stage, the direction that Calgary's been going, I think they're a better team than Calgary. Can Vancouver hang on? So, I mean, I think the Blues are the same team that they've been to me all year. They're a bubble team. If they get on a hot streak, we've been talking about this all year, if they could just rattle off a series of, you know, 7 out of 10 or 8 out of 10, they're going to be right there. And there's just an awful lot to like right now. I mean, the beach must have done them good, fellas. Like, they look so much energy on the ice. That game against Seattle on Tuesday, like, holy cow, man, it was done by the middle of the first, right? So I'm not buying in that they're going to make the playoffs, but, man, they're making noise, and they're fun to watch, and it's cool to see them beat some really good teams.
Mike, we've heard Jim Montgomery harp on the details since he took over for the Blues, talking about being aggressive from the opening faceoff, winning both goal lines in games. And for the longest time, it's like, man, why aren't these guys doing what Jim Montgomery is telling them? And now you've seen it for 4 straight games. Is there something, if you're an athlete, to when you hear what the coach is telling you and you see it work on the ice, that it starts to force you to play that way a little bit more?
Well, I also wonder if just watching that Four Nations tournament didn't inspire them a little bit, and to see to watch their goaltender, see what Jordan Binnington did in the tournament, see what Colton Parayko did in the tournament, see what their U.S. counterparts did as well. I think the Blues have been a team all season long that's been ripe for a little bit of a kick in the butt to really get going, and there's been a couple moments where it seemed to get there. But I think that tournament really showed the intensity you got to play with and the detail you have to have, and that's a nice balance right now. Like, look how hard the Blues are back pressuring now under Montgomery, right? As fast as Montgomery wants this team to play, as much as he wants them to stretch the neutral zone, get up the ice as quick as they can, that comes with the expectation that you're going to back check just as hard. And I think it's finally sunk in for the team. I do think it also helps that the line combinations, to me, are pretty set right now in what they have. You've seen there's been flux in it, right? But it seems like they're working, right? Schenn and Holloway, we know that's a great combination. I've liked seeing Neighbors up on the top. I like seeing the WTF line back together on the back end. So I think that tournament might have really been a turning point, and just some rest, man. Like, they're pretty inspired looking right now.
We're talking with Mike McKenna here on 101 ESPN. Mike, Robert Thomas has an assist in 8 straight games. It's the longest streak by a Blue since 2003. Booch has a point in at least a point in each of his past 5 games as well. That line has looked really good since the break, and they've been dominant. They have been involved in 7 of the 18 goals that the Blues have scored since the break. Mm-hmm. What have you seen that is different? Is it just health, rest? They look rejuvenated, or is there something about the way that they're playing stylistically that you've noticed?
Well, I think you hit on one key word there. I think health here is something that we may not know about. We never know about as fans, right? Unless you have an inside track on it. But I'm listening radio last night, and I hear Cam Jansen say, man, Buchnevich looks great, and he's just, maybe he's a little dinged up earlier this year. I don't know. And it really makes you wonder, right? Like if there was something there with Buchnevich that was hindering him a little bit, and without being in the locker room, you just never know. You're throwing spaghetti against the wall. But I watch how Parayko picks up his goal last night in the front of the net, and Buchnevich is out in front of it, smacking away, chopping snakes, like playing hard hockey. When you see a player play with that type of jam in an area where you're going to feel a little pain, they're feeling pretty healthy. That's my impression. And, I think Thomas just needs the horses to go with him sometimes, right? He's seeing the ice very well. He's moving well. Neighbors is creating space in front of the net. But it's really been Buchnevich to me that's kind of been the driving force in rejuvenating that line, and I've really liked what I've seen from him.
The other driving force for me, Mike, why this offense has been working so well is because the defensemen getting involved. And this isn't defensemen picking up goals from the blue line, although Parayko had a 102-mile-an-hour slapper against the Colorado Avalanche last week. But Parayko has scored 2 goals in the last 3 games standing right in front of the net. Philip Broberg last night does his best Bobby Orr impression as he goes backhand on Charlie Lindgren. Like, this is a group of defensemen that aren't just creating offense. They're jumping into the rush with the forwards.
I think they trust each other. It's taken a little bit for this to shake out. Cam Fowler gets inserted into the mix. Broberg comes back from an injury. There'd been some flux on the back end. Now you're seeing a really strong D-core every single night for the Blues. Fowler has undoubtedly given Parayko another boost of energy to go to the front of the net, for me. When you have somebody like Fowler that's as smart as he is, that positionally understands the game, those two can feed off each other. I mean, look at where Broberg scored last night. Like, he didn't do it from the blue line, like you said, lofting it in. Man, he scored on the back door, and he scored crash in the net, forehand, backhand. So it's great to see, but it also speaks to that veteran presence alongside Broberg. Look at Justin Falk. Again, another smart player, knows when to jump into play, knows when to hang back. The forwards are also getting that coaching, too. The F3 has been an incredibly disciplined for the Blues. When you have an F3 high in the slot, when you have a safety valve, it's the same thing we preach to our Pee-wees, which, by the way, let's go Kirkwood Stars playing in the B1 Championship for 12U at 5:20 p.m. at Centene on this Sunday.
Go on out and support.
Yeah, and I'll tell you what, man, it's fun to watch. And, yeah, that is true. It is Blue Note Cup this weekend. Everybody, get out to Centene Saturday and Sunday. Watch the youth hockey. It's incredible. It's all day Saturday and Sunday. Shameless plug because I love it more than anything. Youth hockey in the city means everything to me. It's just the coolest thing. So if you can get out, please do so.
Mike, final hockey question from me, and then we'll talk Macadoodles. Trade deadline. We're not going to talk to you until after the trade deadline this coming Thursday. We've seen tons of rumors. It's silly season, so much so that Toronto thinks they're going to trade for Colton Parayko. What do you think this Blues team is viewing this trade deadline as?
I think it's going to be a big nothing burger. I really do. Unless Doug Armstrong can pull the biggest rabbit out of his hat and land a huge name, I don't see that happening. I still think of an untouchable like a Parayko to me. I just look at the way this guy's playing and controlling the game. Are you going to get a haul for him if you do so? Yeah. But where are you going to fill in on the back end? I know there's prospects coming in, but, Suter, Leddy, Falk, Fowler, man, these guys are all 30-plus here. So I don't see how you move out a number one D unless you're – I don't see a world you move them. I don't know who you can get, honestly, that would make it worthwhile for me for Colton Parayko. I don't. But I do think that the Blues will be largely quiet, I think, at the trade deadline. Again, unless Army can pull something out of his hat here and pull off a big shocker, I don't think we're going to see a whole lot.
Mike, last thing, we'll get you out of here on this. I know you guys have the Irish Whiskey Festival coming up that people can buy tickets for still. You've got another cool wine pairing with Sugar Fire that you have going on. What exactly can people look forward to over at Macadoodles right now?
Yeah, we do have some cool things coming here, and I do want to just take 1 second to send our entire family's condolences out to Chris Kerber and his family and his father passing away this week. It just... we've heard some different voices on the radio, and I tell you what, Curbs' dad was dyed in the wool, true blue, obviously led to the love of the game for his own son, and just been thinking about Chris an awful lot. Good man and good family there and good friend. So on the Macadoodle side of things, though, let's flip this. We do have a couple of events coming. This Thursday, March 6th, we have Woodhead Distilling and Blacksmith coming in. Those are two local producers. That's a $20 ticket. It'll get you in the door for some tastings, some pours that evening. $15 of your ticket will go towards purchase. That's from 7 to 8:30. Those tickets are available at macadoodles.com, and you can go to Dardine Prairie. March 19th, we got a wine tasting with South Africa and Sugar Fire. And then the big dog coming up here is March 13th, the Irish Whiskey Festival. We will be dropping 5 allocated whiskeys that day. You show up, you get your ticket, you put it in the bucket. You got a chance to win a Four Roses LE. You got a chance to win a 13th Colony Double Oak. You got a chance to win a Michter's Toasted. We're running it on the 13th, man. Show up here for the Irish Whiskey Festival. I got Redbreast 27 in the building. I got Red Spot, Blue Spot, Green Spot. I got Redbreast 15 years. It's going to be a great event. So that's what's happening at Macadoodles, fellas. What do you think?
You love to see it. It sounds fantastic.
Yeah.
It's always great stuff over at Macadoodles. We appreciate Macadoodles, and we appreciate Mike McKenna joining us as he does each and every Friday here on BK and Ferrario. Mike, enjoy yourself this weekend at the Blue Cup out here at the Centene Community Ice Center. We'll talk with you again next week and recap whatever it is that happens at this year's NHL trade deadline.
BK Ferrario, always looking forward to it. You guys take care of yourself. Have a fantastic weekend. Enjoy this warm weather. Come see us at Macadoodles.
Absolutely.
Go,
Same to you. That's Mike McKenna. Appreciate his time as always. Coming up next, 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line. If you guys have any questions, sports or otherwise, we'll get to them and ask us anything here on 101 ESPN.
Live from the Centene Community Ice Center inside the ENB Granite Studios, this is BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN. ENB Granite, Bernie Federko's only choice for granite countertops, cabinets, and flooring. You've got questions, we may have the answers. Maybe. It's BK and Ferrario's Questions and Answers on 101 ESPN.
319-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line for Ask Us Anything. If you guys have any questions, sports or otherwise, go ahead and get them in right now on the Air Comfort Service text line. From the 636, this is a question we don't get every day. Guys, any thoughts on the coaching search for Mizzou Tigers women's basketball? Actually, I do. Believe it or not, I do have some thoughts on this. I think that this is going to be a really interesting time for Mizzou women's basketball, the way that it was during the baseball coaching search a couple of years ago where they ended up with Erik Jackson. This is a moment where Mizzou gets to decide, do you care about investing in women's basketball? I don't mean for that to sound crass, but it's true. Mizzou, over the last couple of years, has shown they don't care about women's basketball. Right or wrong, you can agree with that decision or not, but last year they saved a few $1,000s by not firing Robin Pingeton when everybody and their mother knew that Mizzou was going to be walking away this year from Robin Pingeton. They chose not to do so. They didn't want to pay the buyout, and so here we are today. So now you get to make another choice. Are you ready to now invest in the program, or are you going to do this and just say, you know what, we're going to do what we've been doing, which is not be very good, not invest a ton of money into it because we don't make much money off of this. We make no money off of this to begin with. So that's what this will make. That's the decision that will be made here. If you have to go hire somebody, I mean, everybody's mentioned her, but it's because it's a good hire. Molly Miller is from the state. She now coaches at, what's it called? Grand Valley? No. I forget what it's called, but she's the head coach in Arizona at a Christian university. She's like one of the most successful coaches in college basketball over the last 5 to 7 years, and she's from Kickapoo. She coached in Springfield, so she's from the state. If you want to go make a splash hire, Molly Miller is the one.
Grand Canyon.
That's what it is. So that's the hire that I think they should make. Will they make it? I don't know. We'll find out. All right, 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line for Ask Us Anything from the 314. Guys, do you think that the Cardinals season this year could be similar to what we saw from the Mets a year ago?
2024 Mets?
They started out really bad, and then as the season continued along, they kind of found their footing and had great team chemistry, and we know what happened in the end.
Oh, if we sign Iglesias, we could get the whole OMG thing going again. He is available.
I've been interested in Iglesias for 7 years.
Yeah, we could have finally come full circle on that moment. Mm-hmm. I don't think so. I don't think they could become what the Mets were. I mean, the Mets won almost 90 games last season. Now, I don't believe in their rotation. I actually think there's a chance the Cardinals could have a similar, if not better, rotation of what the Mets had. I don't believe in David Peterson. I don't believe in Jose Quintana. I also don't believe in Sean Manaea, Luis Severino. Those guys I don't necessarily believe in terms of staying healthy and pitching like that. But, that offense, Pete Alonso, Francisco Lindor, J.D. Martinez, you don't have those three guys. And that's why I just don't think they can become that team. I don't think they're an 89-win team. I've said before, I think their ceiling's 80 wins.
Yeah, they had three guys who were 20% or more above league average. You maybe have one of those guys. Maybe two of OPS plus. You don't have a Lindor.
Honestly. Vientos, you hope you get one Vientos.
Yeah, I was going to say, Wilson Contreras is probably the closest you've got, and I would say a Pete Alonso.
I mean, 2 years ago, they had more, though. 2 years ago, Newbar was close to that. I think Donovan was basically right around there. Gorman was pretty close to that as well. Walker was pretty close to that. I think really a lot of what the Cardinals need to go right this year. My answer to this question is no. I don't think they're going to be that. But I think a lot of what the Cardinals are hoping for this year is guys just return to what they were 2 years ago, and last year was the outlier season. I don't know how likely that is, but I think that's kind of what the hope. If you are somebody that is optimistic, that is probably the way that it happens.
But you're talking 2 years ago, 2022, right?
No, 2023.
Oh crap! It is 2025.
Yep.
Even then,
Gorman was 116 OPS plus.
He had an 800 OPS. That's good.
Who's your Goalie from 2 years ago, though? Goalie wasn't Goalie of 2022. Goalie was still pretty good.
Goalie in 2023 was an 810 OPS. Nolan Gorman was 805. They were basically the same offensively.
But if we're saying Gorman gets back to that, again, you still need somebody to become Paul Goldschmidt. You need somebody to take what that production was from Paul Goldschmidt and step into that role. Now, maybe that's Walker, but again, if we're saying that they're getting back to their spot, you almost need Herrera to become that guy.
Yeah.
And we'll see. I'm still skeptical he's getting enough playing time to become that guy. So that would be my question.
Did you hear his comments about Pedro Pajes? Yeah, I see a lot of Pedro.
I'm not betting on this. I'm just telling you, I think that's probably the way that it goes. All right, 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line for Ask Us Anything. From the 314, guys, it sounds like the Kelsey brothers would like to bring the NHL to Kansas City. Is there any way that happens, in your opinion, over the next 5 years? I don't think so. I think if the NHL expands, there's other markets that they're more interested in than Kansas City.
I think it's going to be Houston is going to be probably priority number one. Atlanta is going to be up there. And I personally think they're going to try and get another one up in Canada before they even consider Kansas City.
I also just don't see the need to expand right now for the NHL.
No,
they just expanded.
And if you expand it, you're going to have to expand it to 2. You can't go to 33. That's going to jack up everything in terms of playoffs, the standings, the Eastern Conference versus Western Conference. Like, you have to go to 32 to 34. And Bettman's they're not going to expand until the new commissioner takes over.
That's what I was
Because Bettman even said, no, he's like, what? We're not fixing what's not broken. It's fine.
Bettman's going, hey, man, NHL's in a good spot right now. I don't want to do anything that could mess this up, so I can retire with everybody kind of liking it.
Well, Bettman's like Superman right now. Like, despite the fact that you've had multiple lockouts under your belt, like, people are talking about you running probably the most success for the NHL since the Gretzky era.
Yeah.
And you're not going to jack that up by changing the playoff format, changing the overtime format, or bringing in another team and jacking things up.
All right, from the 314, we'll go to a few more of these questions very quickly. We'll do this rapid-fire edition. Bill Belichick and North Carolina are going to be on this year's offseason Hard Knocks after the NFL teams decided not to do it because of what happens with the Giants last year. Guys, is this something that you're going to be interested in, a college version of the offseason Hard Knocks?
Absolutely, especially that it's Bill Belichick.
I want to see it just because I want to see some insight into how the college offseason works, honestly. I think a lot of fans are interested in what it is now because it is more similar to the NFL. I mean, you're seeing these teams. Oklahoma just hired the old Senior Bowl director to be their next general manager. The front office, quote-unquote, of these college football programs is starting to look more and more like the NFL, so I'm definitely interested. T-Bone, I'm curious your thoughts on this. Albert Pujols is expected to manage the Dominican Republic in next year's World Baseball Classic. Do you think Albert Pujols within the next 3 years is a major league manager?
I'll say yes. I mean, he got glowing reviews from players in the Caribbean Series this last go-around, and if he does well again in the WBC, I could totally see where he becomes a guy that gets hired in the next 3 years. I don't think it'd be in St. Louis, but I could see him getting a job somewhere else.
All right, coming up in about 15 minutes, did John Mozeliak just indicate that Brendan Donovan is going to be playing in the outfield this season? We'll talk about that in 15 minutes, but next, we got another update on Braden Schenn. In fact, at this point, we've had 2 separate updates on Braden Schenn since the beginning of the day. We'll pass those along, and Alex is all in on this defensive core. He'll tell you why next here on 101 ESPN.
BK and Ferrario are broadcasting live from the E&B Granite Studios at the Centene Community Ice Center on 101 ESPN. E&B Granite, Bernie Fedurko's only choice for granite countertops, cabinets, and flooring.
Alongside Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. We got Jordan Deacon back in the studio for us today. She's doing a fantastic job as we're broadcasting live at the E&B Granite Studios at the Centene Community Ice Center. Alex, I feel like the next week or so is going to be full of stories that are actually non-stories surrounding Braden Schenn, so get excited for that. They continue along here. Woo-hoo. Darren Drager tweeted this out earlier this morning. Action continues to swirl around Scott Lawton with several teams tracking. He then continues. Meanwhile, the Blues' position on Schenn has not changed. He won't be traded unless a team steps up and pushes Armstrong to go to Schenn and ask him to waive his no-trade clause. I believe a team will make that interesting. I think based on all of our understanding of the situation, we know who that team is that he thinks will make it interesting. He believes that the Toronto Maple Leafs will eventually make it interesting.
You know what that sounds like to me? Toronto called, and Doug Armstrong said, yep, still Matthew Nyes. They hung up and then called Philadelphia and said, hey, can we get Scott Lawton without giving you Matthew Nyes? And Philly was like, sure.
And the Maple Leafs then said, okay, give us some time to think this through. We got to decide if we want to give up Matthew Nyes.
Yep.
Then, just a little bit ago, Andy Strickland on Twitter tweeted out, Toronto has the pieces to make a deal for Braden Schenn, Matthew Nyes, but as of now has not put together a package that would make it work. I am told, Andy Strickland, at this point, a deal with the Maple Leafs is unlikely. Could change, but as of now, doubtful. I mean this as zero disrespect to Andy Strickland, I promise you. But this is the season where reporting on this stuff really makes me frustrated because, like, all of that is what it's been. There's really no change there. Basically, what Andy Strickland said is, hey, if Matthew Nyes is made available, sure, the Blues would consider it, but he hasn't been made available, and therefore there is no update on this story. That is effectively what this tweet is. But it could change at any point. As of now, it seems to be doubtful. Sure, totally understand. And so it is technically an update, but it is what we knew, and it's based on it's basically what we talked about yesterday in regards to Schenn's availability. Alex, I said this yesterday. We can just reiterate it here. We don't have to spend too much time on it, honestly. My stance, if I'm Doug Armstrong, is very simple. You guys are desperate. We talked yesterday with Nick Kiprios, and if you guys missed that conversation, I think it's worth your time. Check it out on the podcast page after the show today. And he said the pressure on Brendan Shanahan is an 11 out of 10 to make a deep run into the playoffs this year. 11 out of 10. If you're feeling that kind of a pressure as the president of your hockey team in that kind of a market, which is to hockey what St. Louis is to baseball, you get desperate. And you make decisions that you otherwise wouldn't. And so if I'm Doug Armstrong, I'm looking at it and saying, I don't need to trade Braden Schenn. Braden Schenn is a good hockey player. He's playing well for us right now. We've got a line that really works around him. So if you want Braden Schenn, there's only one way that you can make this work, and it is by blowing me away with Matthew Nyes and then maybe even adding in more beyond that. Yeah. So that hasn't happened clearly at this point in time. I'm not sure how likely it is to happen, but that's where we're at, man.
Yeah, I have officially entered the stage of I'm not trading him unless you're giving me a top line, top six player. That's the only way I'm doing this. And Jordan, sorry to throw this at you late. If you could pull up the Ryan Suter cut in our show folder, because why my decision is kind of swayed a little bit more. It's not just the success of this team, because in the last 29 games, that's the frame that Jim Montgomery put Schenn with Holloway and Kyrou. He's got 21 points in 29 games. Braden Schenn does, and is a +4, and he's averaging about 17 and a half minutes. That's a really good number 2 centerman for you right now. That's almost a point per game player. But Ryan Suter was on the late shift, which is a part of the Blue Note Productions, after their victory. I believe it was against the Seattle Kraken. And this was Suter, who, mind you, Ryan Suter has been in the league for 40 years, it feels like. He's played with a lot of great captains, and this is what he said about Braden Schenn.
Heard a lot about Schenner, and he's one of the best people that I've ever met in my life. I think he is the glue that holds this thing as tight as it is. The locker room is so good. It's a really good thing that they have here, and I think all of that, sold me on why I wanted to be here.
So some of this is team speak, right? You hear this and you're like, yeah, okay, what else is he going to say? And I totally understand that. And frankly, him saying that it's what's keeping this team together, if you're a pessimist and you're like, yeah, this kind of been held together by toothpicks and bubble gum right now, fine. But I'd argue, what would it look like without Braden Schenn? You might be talking about 3 straight years of picking top 5. So I'm not sitting here saying he's the best thing since sliced bread. What I'm saying is you're seeing a different team right now, and some of this is because of the trade rumors swirling around. Some of this is because these guys hear this, and even Robert Thomas told TMA, like, it's our job to go out there and force Doug not to make any moves. What you have is a legit number 2 centerman. Does he decline in the next couple of years? Probably. But then you're a legit number 3 centerman. And if the timing is right, Dvorsky could be that number 2 centerman, and you've got the depth down the middle. So this is no longer of, well, maybe I could get a Fraser Minton or an Easton Cow in from Toronto, and they're really good prospects. Nope. Give me Matthew Nyes, or we're not making a deal. Otherwise, I'm going to keep this guy for $6.5 million, and I'm going to keep the guy that's the leader of my team.
If the cap was flat still, I might view this a little differently. There's a chance that I would view it as, hey, $6.5 million is a lot for a potential third-line center here within the next year or so, especially for a team that has Dalibor Dvorsky coming, and you just don't know how all of this is kind of going to fit together. But it's spiking after this season, and that $6.5 million contract next year and the year and beyond will be effectively what a $4.5 million contract was over the past couple of seasons.
It's like what Saad was.
Exactly. So if he produces, he's better than what Brandon Saad was. And he's going to make the equivalent against the cap to what Brandon Saad made, and he brings the leadership stuff that you're talking about, and he plays a style that works. There is no pressure for Doug Armstrong to make this move, and certainly no pressure to make it now, when he could potentially do the same thing in the offseason, when it becomes a little easier because Braden Schenn only has a 15-team no-trade list in the offseason, and right now it's a full no-trade clause. So you have more leverage as the president of hockey operations in the offseason than what you do right now. All of this goes back to Matthew Nyes or bust. If you want to give us Matthew Nyes, we'll start talking. That doesn't mean that it's a 1-for-1 necessarily, but that is the starting point. Mm-hmm. And until we get there, there is no reason for us to have discussions. We got this from Andrew on the text line. Guys, can we level set? What is Matthew Nyes? Is he a surefire top 6 forward? It certainly feels that way. Everything about Matthew Nyes and what he's been thus far suggests that he's going to be a very good NHLer. This year he's playing 18 minutes a night. He's playing on that top line with them. He has not looked overmatched. We've seen this before here in St. Louis, where guys will go up to that top line and they look a little overwhelmed. He's 22 years old and he has 21 goals. Is some of that a product of playing with Austin Matthews? 100%. I would not expect him to get here to St. Louis and be a 35-goal scorer. However, when you just look at the style of player that he is and the skills that he brings to the table, he's got a very good shot. He goes to the dirty areas. Most of his shots are coming at or near the net. 50 of his shots on the season have been in high-danger areas. So he goes to where he needs to be, similar to a Jake Neighbors, for example, and then when he's shooting from deep, he has a great shooting percentage, so he's got a pretty good shot as well. It's not the hardest shot in the NHL, but it's a good one nonetheless. So all of this stuff leads, and he's a pretty good skater as well, like above average. He's not Dylan Holloway, but he's a good skater as well. He's a top 6 forward. Legit number 1, like go-to winger? No, don't expect that out of him. Can he be a 25-goal scorer for you, though? Yeah, I think that could potentially be the case. And at his age of 22 years old and the contract of having a bridge deal after this season, that's a really excellent asset to be able to acquire in return for a Braden Schenn or anybody for that matter.
You're not acquiring Matthew Nyes because he's a superstar in the making. You're acquiring Matthew Nyes to just fully enforce that pack mentality. And maybe it's the wrong decision. We've talked about how you kind of need a superstar these days. But think about what your core would look like if you made that move.
Just on that move, on that point real quick, it also doesn't prevent you from then going to acquire a superstar.
Totally.
Because Matthew Nyes is not going to get a $10 to $12 million contract. It's not like you're paying Chandler Stevenson from last year star money for a mid-level player, or going out this offseason and signing Sam Bennett for star money when he's a mediocre, a good but middling player. Like, I would rather have Braden Schenn, for example, than Sam Bennett. But those are really bad contracts. This would still allow for you to have that pack mentality, and if something were to come available, whether it's Matthew Nyes that becomes a trade chip or you go out there and use other stuff to become the trade chips, you can go do that.
Well, that's what I was going to – when you put them together, you've got a Nyes, a Holloway, a Neighbors, a Bolduc, a Snuggerud, a Kyrou, a Pavel Buchnevich, and then Dvorsky, Robert Thomas, and Stenberg. And you've got a core of players that are 25 and under, and you've got about 8 of them. And guess what? You don't need 8 of them. You need 6 of them, maybe 7 of them, because you like to add a little depth and you don't need guys that are skill players to be playing on your 3rd and 4th line, hence the WTF line. So what that does is you have your pick of the litter of, hey, these are our guys. Who do we want to take over? But that is the pack mentality to where you've got 5 or 6 dudes that are 25 years old or younger that have all of the skill set. And then when a couple of the ones are the odd men out, those are the guys that get traded for the star that is not happy it's what Chicago did when they went on that cup run. They had the Taves, they had the Kane, they had the Brandon Saad, they had a couple of other dudes. And what did? They said, let's go get our superstar. Let's go get Marian Hossa. At some point, you build the core, you build the nucleus, and then you go get the missing piece. Matthew Nice becomes a part of the core if you pull this deal off for a guy that might not be in the core 3 years from now. That's why you do this move.
And the group that you just said has too many wingers. Like you have Snugs, Dvorsky, Kyrou, Bolduc, Holloway, Booch, Nyes, and Neighbors. That's 7 forwards for really 6 slots as your wingers. And then you get to make decisions.
Yep.
Now you get to make choices, and the guy that is the odd man out becomes a trade chip for you. I don't know who that's going to be, but one of them becomes a trade chip, and now you go get, whether it's a defenseman that can play in your top 4, or you go get a center that can be either a second or a third line center for you. Now you have a very young core group of players that you're starting to build around, and for the next 5 seasons, that's what you think can be the core of a potential Stanley Cup contender. With Alex Ferrario and Tanner Hendrickson, I'm Brandon Kiley. We'll certainly update you if we hear anything new in this regard on the Schenn stuff. I don't expect to hear anything new, at least for the next few
Anything's
days.
possible. It's doubtful, but anything's possible.
But
Things could change.
We will update you as we go along there. Erik Kratz is going to join us in 15 minutes. Did Mo just indicate that Brendan Donovan's going to be playing in the outfield this year, though? We'll talk about that next here on 101 ESPN.
live from the Centene Community Ice Center inside the E&B Granite Studios. This is BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN. E&B Granite, Bernie Fedurko's only choice for granite countertops, cabinets, and flooring.
Got some news for Tanner Hendrickson. We'll get his reaction live here on BK and Ferrario with Alex and T-Bone on BK. We've got Jordan Deacon back in the studio because we are broadcasting live at the E&B Granite Studios at the Centene Community Ice Center. Matthew Stafford.
Bum, bum, bum.
And the Rams are in agreement to keep him in Los Angeles. Despite the relationship getting contentions at times and significant interest from both the Raiders and the Giants, both sides were able to hash things out for him to stay with the
Love
Rams.
you, bro. Love you too, man. We'll see you in L.A. this year. God, thank you for not leaving.
I'm so happy because I was so afraid they were going to go sign like Sam Darnold.
This never made sense.
No.
It never made sense for the Rams to go a different direction. This always felt like something where it's like, okay, you're going to eventually give him his money. It's a matter of what's that dollar figure going to look like. I do think it kind of made some sense for them to say, hey, go see what's out there. Go negotiate with other teams, and then we'll match. Whatever's available for you elsewhere, we'll get at least close enough to where it makes sense for you to not have to move your stuff from L.A. So sounds like everything got taken care of. T-Bone, your reaction?
Oh, I'm so happy. They now can still be in. If we could hear music on YouTube since we're out here, I would still be playing that song right now. But I think both sides played a giant game of chicken, and they both got to the table today and were like, hey, sorry. Hey, I'm sorry too. Because I think Stafford didn't want to go to New York or Las Vegas. Even though the money would have been there, I think he realized he would have gotten killed behind those offensive lines, and they weren't going to do any winning, which I think does matter to Stafford. And then I think the Rams, whether you want to give them credit, I think it was stupid to even let them explore the market, but they said, hey, go out there. We'll see what you're worth. Like, maybe, you want $50 million. You're not a $50 million quarterback. He came back as like, Raiders, Giants, they want to give me $100 million guaranteed over 2 years. Rams were like, whoa, okay, so, yeah, you do have a market out there. Yeah, bro hug, let's bring it in. I'm glad they decided to bring him back because to me, like when they had Goff and there was rumblings of, hey, the Rams, they're kind of done with the Goff experiment. There were pivots that offseason. There was Rodgers on the market. There was Stafford on the market. And of course, they go that route. I didn't exactly know what the pivot would have been had they moved on from him. So I'm glad to see that they decided to keep him. He can still play an elite level even though he's in his late 30s. This keeps him in a winning window with Sean McVay.
Yeah. How much of this was Sean McVay going to the Rams and being like, if you don't bring this guy back, I'm done?
I actually kind of wonder if he's the one that was kind of pushing.
Oh, really?
This. Because him and Stafford have had this.
You think he was ready for Jimmy G?
He's the one who would publicly talk nice about Jimmy G. That's all I'll say.
You gotta talk nice about him.
My read on Sean McVay and T-Bone, you can tell me if I'm off on this, is that he gets bored with stuff. Like he's like, you know what? This isn't working. I need to go to the next thing. This isn't working. I need to go to the next thing. And he did that with Jared Goff. Now, it was also the right move, so it's hard to criticize him for it. I'm not criticizing Sean McVay necessarily. He's a top 3 to 5 coach in the league, and that's conservative. I think he looked at the situation with Matt Stafford and was like, he's getting old. I don't know how much longer we're going to be able to get this level of play out of him. And I think I can do this with Jimmy Garoppolo. I think I can do this with Sam Darnold. And so there's alternatives out there. I think that's really ultimately what this came down to. All right, let's get into the next thing. Let's just stick with NFL quick hitters here. We'll get to our baseball conversation about John Mozeliak. I want to spend a little bit more time on that. We've got Erik Kratz coming up here in just about 5 minutes. He's joining us here on the show. Co-host of Foul Territory. He was at Cardinals camp yesterday. So we'll talk Cardinals with Erik Kratz here in about 5 minutes or so. But a news report came out from Jordan Schultz he's with Fox Sports now, if I'm not mistaken. He said the Commanders and Texans have had significant interest in trading for 49ers wide receiver Deebo Samuel. The talks have progressed in recent days. Other teams, including the Steelers and Broncos, have also checked in, but Houston and Washington are believed to be the most aggressive. How do you guys feel about that fit? Commanders or Texans for potentially Deebo Samuel?
I think it makes more sense for the Commanders than the Texans because the Commanders need that number one guy. I'm just not all in on Deebo Samuel. I don't. Deebo Samuel can't stay healthy for me, and unless I know he's going to be out there every single game, I don't know if I'd want to invest the stock that's going to have to go into that. So, me personally, if I'm the Texans or the Commanders, I'm good. but I understand why they're looking into this because there's not a whole lot of number ones out there right now.
I think he makes sense for both teams. I think these are like the perfect teams to potentially trade for him. Texans have the previous relationship with him. D'Amico Ryans was in San Francisco. Their offensive staff, for the most part, has ties to San Francisco in one way or another. So in that way, there's a lot of relationships that could just make sense for Debo. And then with the Commanders, dude, it's not hard to see how he fits into that offense. They do a bunch of weird stuff with them, and then you could put him in the backfield occasionally as well, the way that he has previously been used in San Francisco. He's the number 2 to their number 1 in Terry McLaurin. I think both teams make a lot of sense. I am a little surprised that teams are willing to take on the money. That's my biggest surprise here. I don't think they're going to get a lot in return. I think it'll be like a day 3 pick. This is a salary dump. But if you're just asking me, hey, where does Debo Samuel make sense for another team? Those are the 2 teams that would probably be front of mind for me.
Yeah, and like if you're Washington, like because that was the number one thing that I thought of when I saw that the rumored was of him being traded. I thought it was going to play out just like Cooper Kupp, which was, hey, he's on the block. But everybody looked at that number and went, are we really going to pay that guy with that salary? I would just rather he get cut and then we try and go sign him in free agency. But it does make some sense because I do like the fit with Washington a lot. Hey, we've got some cap space. Why not just go do this rather than play the game of let him explore what his market really is on free agency? So I can convince myself of, okay, yeah, if we give up a later round pick, we can go get this guy. Sure, we're probably overpaying a little bit, but it's worth taking the risk on him to see if he does bounce back.
All right, last thing here as we go through NFL quick hitters here on BK and Ferrario. Erik Kratz joining us on the other side. I don't know if you guys are familiar with the gentleman by the name of Shamar Stewart. He's a defensive end in this year's NFL draft. He's an absolute monster when it comes to his size. He's basically Myles Garrett size-wise. He projects the same way. He's 6'5", 270 pounds, and yesterday he had a 40-inch vertical at the NFL's Combine. He's unbelievably explosive. His numbers, whether it's wingspan, weight, height, vertical, broad jump, all of the explosive measures are as good or better than what Myles Garrett produced at the NFL Combine. So that is the starting point here. He is now projected to be a potential top 10 pick. Now, based on what I have just said, how many sacks do you think Shamar Stewart had in college? He played for Texas A&M. He was there for 3 years. How many sacks do you think Shamar Stewart had in his collegiate career?
It's a low number because I think I heard them mention this on a broadcast. Is it like...
I was going to say 7.
Let's say 10 was what I was going with.
4.5.
Okay,
he never had more than 1.5.
Wow.
All 3 years of his collegiate career, he had 1.5 sacks per season. Listen, I get it. The guy has unbelievable talent. Clearly, he's got the athleticism to be a superstar defensive end at the next level. If you can't produce more than 5 sacks at the collegiate level, I can't take you in the first round. I'm sorry. I just can't. And I say that as somebody that loves the projectable players.
This guy's going to be a top 10 pick in the NFL so he could block field goals.
It's weird, right? Like no more than 5 sacks. Mizzou had multiple defensive ends that had more than 5 sacks last year.
Shamar, get out there and just
3 year in a college career.
Just jump. Jump.
I just picture him now like, how does that happen when you're this explosive? I just picture him always like, there he goes, and he goes right around the quarterback.
He's just jumping. He's like, I'm going to get it. I'm going to get it.
All right, with Alex and T-Bone on BK. Coming up next, we're going to talk to Erik Kratz, former Major League catcher. He was at Cardinals camp yesterday as part of Foul Territories coverage. He's going to join us to discuss what he got vibes-wise. Vibes check-in with Erik Kratz next year on 101 ESPN.
101 ESPN Sports Center.
I'm Jordan Deacon. The Sports Center update is brought to you by Saliga Heating and Cooling. This weekend on 101 ESPN, we've got plenty of play-by-play action happening for you. Kicking it off for Tennessee versus Alabama college basketball. Tip-off is at 12 tomorrow. And then tomorrow night, the Blues will take on the Kings with pregame at 6 and puck drop at 7. Then on Sunday, we've got NBA action for you. Celtics versus Nuggets with tip-off at 12. And then the Blues are in Dallas taking on the Stars. Pregame is at 4 o'clock, and then puck drop is at 5 right here on your home for the Blues, 101 ESPN. I'm Jordan Deacon. The Sports Center update was brought to you by Saliga Heating and Cooling, an independent American Standard heating and air conditioning dealer.
This is BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN. We're broadcasting live from the E&B Granite Studios at the Centene Community Ice Center. E&B Granite, Bernie Fedurko's only choice for granite countertops, cabinets, and flooring.
Good day when we can catch up with former Major League catcher, now a host on Foul Territory. He's Erik Kratz. He's joining us via the Callier and Thompson hotline. Erik, we appreciate the time, man. Enjoyed all of your content that you produced yesterday out at Cardinals camp. How you doing today, my friend?
I am doing awesome.
Erik, let's get into it. You're out at Cardinals camp in Jupiter. You talked to Ollie Marmol. We saw your stuff with Derek Gould as well. What was the general vibe check-in from Cardinals camp? Where are we at?
I mean, I know I'm on Cardinals radio, so I'm going to shoot you straight.
No.
Yeah,
we're
we want
the
honest.
home of the Blues. The Cardinals radio network is on a different station, so you can give it to us honest.
All right, perfect. I was going to give it to you honest anyway, because that's pretty much the only, if you haven't seen the show, that's the only way that I can really go. No, honestly, like, you feel like they're in a transition. You feel like there's people trying to find their roles with the team, their roles with the future of the organization. And that in no way is saying that these dudes on this team aren't going to give 100%. They're not going to give, they're going to give everything they got. It's just, I think it's new for everybody. I mean, think about when Ollie Marmol took over, like, they had gotten Nolan Arenado. Paul Goldschmidt was, solidified on this team. Now Goldie's gone. Nolan's here, I guess, but he's kind of gone. Like, Sonny Gray signed last year to be on a team that was looking like they were supposed to contend. Now Sonny Gray is still on the same team, and they're not looking that way. Like, when you have conversations a year after signing a 3-year deal, which could possibly be the last deal of your career, and he didn't come to St. Louis because they gave him the most money, because there was the best chance to play. And then you're having a conversation at the end of that season, hey, bro, you still want to be here? And it's like, wait, what? Like, what is going on? So I'm in Mets camp today. Let's put it this way. Vibe in Mets camp is high for the right reasons. The vibe in the Cardinals camp is it's there. To be honest, it's there.
It's there. They're just vibing for that good weather then, Erik. So it sounds like you're in the same camp that we have been on, wondering why the Cardinals did this approach this offseason. What I mean by that is they made it seem like they were going to be shipping a lot of guys out, and instead they didn't move anybody. They brought back Nolan Arenado, and they said, well, yep, now we're transitioning rather than giving the young players an opportunity.
Totally. And I asked Derek Gould that question yesterday. Like, everyone's like, oh, Nolan Arenado, like, he could be gone, all this stuff. And now he's here. Who's at bats is he taking? There's somebody important at bats.
Burleson.
And
That's
you
the
wonder,
answer, Erik. It's Alec Burleson.
It's what?
Alec Burleson.
Yeah, it is. It's what it comes down to. And ultimately, to me, my opinion is that this team made decisions that went through this offseason. They made decisions to, this guy's, he's next future second baseman. Oh, but we're going to go play him in the outfield now. Why? Because, well, this position needed to be filled. Okay, Lars Nootbaar, he's our best center fielder we've ever had. Okay, he's going to go to left. Okay, now we're going to trade Nolan Arenado. No, we're not trading Nolan Arenado. So, Wilson Contreras, he's going to be gone. He's going to play first. It just seems like they were behind the eight ball on a lot of decisions, and they didn't know they were behind the eight ball. And now this season, it's really coming to a head. And I talked to somebody very prominent with the Cardinals yesterday, and they said, look, like Mozeliak's tenure with this organization is going to be remembered right now as terrible. But when we look back on it, it's going to be like a Hall of Famer's baseball career. Like, a lot of these guys hang around too long, or they hang around until stuff goes wrong. The dude's been a GM for, I think, 18 years or 19 years, and he's had 18 winning seasons. So he's done a lot of great things. I just think as an organization as a whole, they put themselves in this situation, and they have no one to blame but themselves.
It's something that I really respect about Theo, Erik, is that when Theo gets into an organization, he has that 10-year rule. He doesn't overstay his welcome, and he knows, like, hey, listen, I'm going to come in, I'm going to break some stuff. It's going to go poorly for a couple of years. We're going to have this winning window, and then I got to get out because there's going to be some bad days that come after that because he goes through cycles. Mo has been in a spot where he tries to avoid those cycles. They try to contend every single season, and that generally speaking means you're not going to go out there and get the massive bloated contract that's got the terrible bad years at the back end. And it also means that you're going to have less upside there. Like, you're not going to win 100 games necessarily in any individual season. And I'm curious, Erik, as you look at them going into this upcoming year, and you have a better scope on the entire National League as opposed to us that are here locally, where do you see this Cardinals team kind of fitting in? How do you project them right now, knowing what is on this roster?
Fifth place in the NL Central. I mean, I don't know how else to put it. I think you look at their lineup could be better because of the dudes that they have. Like, I love some of their young guys. I really, really do. If some of their young guys were told at the end of the season, like, you got 550 at bat in your primary position, or just even not even your primary position, just the position, like, we're not going to change you, they'd be like, oh, thank goodness. That takes a weight off a young player's shoulders. But they don't know that. So to me, that would be huge. This lineup could, and I think Nolan Arenado's going to bounce back. No matter how long he's here, he's in St. Louis, he's going to bounce back. Like, that's just, I believe, and maybe that's an ignorant player in me. I just think he is a guy. He's in great shape. He's going to figure out how to get hits. But to me, like, you can't put this season on Sonny Gray. Like, they're officially now, because the Marlins signed somebody for like $1 million, they're officially the only team without a big league contract this offseason. Somebody told me while I was there, they go, Nick Anderson got a minor league contract, and I think Nick Anderson will make the team. But they haven't signed one big league free agent. Not one.
Erik, there's no way. Somebody with the organization really countered you saying that by saying, well, but Nick Anderson. That really happened?
100%. There were so many eye-roll moments. I love Nick Anderson. Nick Anderson's had some really awesome moments in his big league career. But there's a reason you didn't sign him to a big league contract. And, like, he has to prove himself, and that's fine. That guy's have to prove himself. As an organization, you cannot let Sonny Gray hang out to dry. You cannot let Miles Michaelis, who is going to give everything he has at the end of his career here, just like he has the entire time, hang out to dry. You can't let these young guys that are coming in, like, see that, well, you know what, like, you guys just are going to go and do it. Like, they're willing to just throw pitchers out there and let them pitch, but they're not willing to just let Lars Nootbaar play one position. They're not willing to let Nolan Gorman just play one position. It all hinges on who is who's coming, who's going to play that position? Oh, Brandon Donovan, you be a second baseman, but now you're a right fielder. Oh, sorry, Jordan Walker, you're hitting 280 in the big league. Sorry, we're going to send you down. Like there's just it feels like a mixed signal. And so I say all that to say, I think the Pirates' big three, I'm looking at the Mets sign, so that's why I said the Pirates' big three pitching staff could push them into fourth place, and the Cardinals could be a fifth-place team because there's going to be some bloodbath games, and you also have to think when Nolan does well, somebody will pick him up. Helsley, I'm surprised he's still around. Like, he'll be gone, so it will just be less and less numbers. So, to me, I'm seeing them as a fifth-place team right now.
This seems like a terrible question to ask you at this moment, Erik, but I guess put the optimistic hat on for me. If you were to look at this Cardinals team, not just for this season, but for beyond this season, what would you say is the optimism for this team?
Have you heard of the Boston Red Sox? The Boston Red Sox organization had to get rid of Mookie Betts when Chaim Bloom came in. And Mookie Betts was a cornerstone franchise player. Ownership said, you know what? If he's not going to take a pennies on the dollar contract, we don't want him. So guess who had to get rid of him? Chaim Bloom. Well, guess what else Chaim Bloom was doing? Because that's what he'll be known as in Boston. He was building up the organization. He was building up the infrastructure of the organization that was lacking. All the same exact things, minus Mookie Betts, are what's happening and is currently happening with the organization, your St. Louis Cardinals. They were behind. They were one of the most innovative player development organizations, way ahead. But you know what? You just can't keep doing the exact same things. So now my opinion is a guy like Chaim Bloom is going to come in and he's going to start building up from within. Building up, not completely dismantling what it is, because to me, if I'm a Cardinals fan, I have so much pride for my team because they have been an elite organization for a long time. And if Chaim Bloom build up the Red Sox minor league system to be the number one minor league system, doesn't happen in a year, it's about a 5 to 6 year plan. That's the optimism. The jump start that the Cardinals have is they have a lot of young guys that are in the big leagues right now. So my optimistic view is this is not a 5 to 6 year plan. This is a 2 to 3 year thing that in years 5 and 6, now a lot of what Chaim has done, a lot of what these young guys are doing or can do, Mason Wynn, Jordan Walker, Brendan Donovan, you have young pitching prospects, Quinn Matthews. You sit there and you go, whoa, there's some dudes here, and if we can build around it, now the DeWitts can go and spend money. Now they can go and get that extension candidate or picking up when they got Nolan Arenado, they'll go and get the next Nolan Arenado, a platinum glove. They get the best players. They always have for the history of the DeWitts owning the team. And that's the optimism. The optimism is they want to win.
Erik, we'll get you out of here on this. And we're talking to Erik Kratz. You can see him on Foul Territory. They do a fantastic job over there. He's former Major League catcher. Really good stuff here in this interview. If you missed any of it, check it out on the podcast page after the show today. Erik, as you were at Cardinals camp yesterday, speaking of the optimism, hey, we got to balance this thing out a little bit, man. We were way too low. 5th in the Central Division. We got to have a little bit of optimism.
Oh, I like it, Erik. BK's the one that thinks this team can actually win.
We'll see. We'll see. We'll see. If you were to say, hey, this is the guy that I was hearing the most about in my conversations with people around the team yesterday that they're really high on, that maybe people on the outside don't know enough about. Who's the guy that you were consistently hearing buzz about in your conversations around the Cardinals?
I can tell you the coaches I talked to, John Jay, Descalso. I didn't talk to him. AJ Przinsky, my host, other host on the show. He talked to Descalso, and Ali, I think, even said it on our show, or maybe it was off camera. J.J. Weatherholt. J.J. Weatherholt, yes, everybody sees the Oppo Tater that he hit in spring training game. They see his huge Tyler O'Neill type of muscles, all that stuff. But Ollie Marmol said something that is a separator between good high school kids to college, good college to pro, and good pro to the big leagues, is he just pays attention to details. He's not distracted by things. It doesn't mean he doesn't have a good time. Like some people look at it as, oh, that guy doesn't have a good time. I talked to him a little bit. I talked to JJ a little bit, and he is a monster physically, yes. His swing is super fast, but just is paying attention to detail. He's created a plan, and he knows what he needs to do, and he knows how he needs to approach at bats, but he also asks questions, and he takes in the information when he asks those questions. So J.J. Weatherholt, by far was the name that we heard of the young guys that some fans might know about, but not many outside of, your J.J. Coopers and your Baseball America, your baseball hot seat people.
Yeah, that's a name we certainly talk about plenty. You know how it is, Erik. Here in St. Louis, if there is a player that is highly regarded, we have to talk about him here in this city.
So you didn't hear a lot about Nick Robertson, though, Erik?
Nick Anderson, hello.
Sorry, Nick Anderson.
You were thinking of last year's
I was thinking Nick Robertson was
that they got in return for the aforementioned Tyler O'Neill.
Technically,
Nick Robertson.
These offseason moves, they're coming in hot.
You were thinking of Shane Robinson, and it just got you mixed up.
That's right, Sugar Shane.
Just a dude. I just talked to him yesterday. I'm fully Cardinals now.
You are, man. You are.
Your Cardinals pilled, and you're still picking them to be fifth in the division.
That's
Probably
okay.
would pick them sixth if there were 6 teams.
Me too, Erik.
Erik, our text line right now. Love foul territory. Have this guy on more often. Let's get Erik on weekly. Great talk. Love the conversation. The text line's loving it. Appreciate the time as always, my friend. Enjoy yourself on these spring training tours, and we'll talk with you again soon.
Guys, please reach out.
Absolutely.
Hey, Erik, one more thing before we let you go, man. T-Bone and I kind of have these they need to give you a bigger table when you hit these sites up for your foul territory. These tables they're giving you aren't big enough.
Erik, it's like a foot tall, man. What's going on with these?
That's a full-size table. I'm just a little bit bigger than you think I am, guys.
Erik, I've stood next to Derek Gould. I watched that interview. Stop trying to fool me.
I know Ollie's not that swole.
Derek's a big guy. When Derek goes to hotels, the favorite part is the hotel soap. It makes his muscles look bigger when he puts the hotel soap up next to his arms.
I didn't know where you were going with that.
I didn't need that visualization for the rest of the day today. Erik, appreciate it.
Appreciate you, Erik. Take it easy, man.
Take care, man.
All right, y'all. Thanks for having me.
Joining us here on 101 ESPN. We appreciate his time as always.
They got to get him a bigger table. He's lying to us. That's not a full-size table.
No, we have a little side table for our patio. The furniture was stolen a few years ago.
You don't, but
that might be it.
Erik took it?
We got it at home, right? It's just this little, it's 4 legs, it's tiny little table.
And that's funny because somebody else got it at a home too.
Sure, yeah. It is literally the table that they're using for foul territory. If you guys haven't seen this, check out all of their work. The stuff that they did yesterday was legitimately good from Cardinals camp. They had Ollie Marmol on. They had Derek Gould on. Some really good stuff over there. So he hates the Cardinals despite being fully Cardinal pilled.
I don't blame him.
J.J. Weatherholt, though.
Somebody in the front office said to him, hey, we signed Nick Anderson.
Yeah, right then should have already said, he should have looked at him and responded, so you're a fifth place
Erik
team.
should have picked up his table and walked out after that person said that to him. Yeah. We did make a roster move.
The YouTube chat said, this went over my head. I love inside jokes. Love to be a part of one someday.
Great.
On foul territory, they're set up. They're at these camps, and they have just little tiny chairs, and then in front of them, it might as well be a cardboard box. Yeah. Like a shoebox. The size of a shoebox is what is in front of them, and that's where all of their stuff is for the show.
It did feel like it's not an inside joke. Watch them. You'll see they got 2 laptops on a table that looks like the size of a nightstand.
Half of Kratz's laptop's hanging off of the table.
Yeah, Kratz's knees are like in a go-kart. They're sitting above the table.
It's rough. If you guys missed any of our conversation with Erik Kratz, again, be sure to check that out on the podcast page after the show today. In 15 minutes, can the Blues convince Army not just to stand pat, but actually to push at the deadline and potentially add to this team? I'm sure Alex will say yes. That's coming up in about 15 minutes. But next, time for the junk drawer here on BK and Ferrario.
Centene Community Ice Center inside the E&B Granite Studios. This is BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN. E&B Granite, Bernie Federko's only choice for granite countertops, cabinets, and flooring. Let's open it up. The Junk Drawer with BK and Ferrario.
Alongside Alex Ferrario and Tanner Hendrickson, I'm Brandon Kiley. It's BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. It is time for the Junk Drawer, Alex Ferrario.
I don't like how excited you are about this, and if you say the P word, I'm getting up and walking out of the room.
What?
Where he goes, I don't want to get political.
I'm not kidding. I didn't know where you were going with that.
I thought you did. Every time we do the Junk Drawer, it's the opening line from BK. I don't want to get political, but
I thought today was the day that you were about to get yourself fired. And I was like, Alex, of all days for you to do this.
What do you mean,
Today
man?
is the day.
I even said the P word. I wasn't going to say the word.
No. My very simple thing today for you guys is, what have you been streaming lately?
Okay.
I just wanted to ask.
Well, speaking of the P word, I watched Paradise, the one that T-Bone's been telling me about.
I heard that is
I
good.
haven't been able to make it through 2 episodes. I've fallen
really?
asleep twice. So I saw the hook that T-Bone told me about. I looked at my wife after we watched it, and I go, what just happened? Like, it wasn't even very interesting. And then so I watched the second episode because I like to give, because of The Office, I give everything about 5 episodes before I'll judge it.
I think the first for Paradise, for
Well,
example,
that's what she told me. She said, look, the first 3 episodes are slow, and then it gets better. So
I
I fell
agree with
asleep
that.
last night in episode 2 again.
Well.
So, but Night Agent was the other one,
Dude.
and I binged the first season, which is 10 episodes.
So I thought the first season was great. We're waiting. Kara's out of town right now. She's going to be back next week. We're waiting to watch season 2. I've heard season 2 is a little disappointing relative to what season 1 was, so I'm a little nervous about that. When I love a show, and I hear reviews that are like, "Hey, this season was not good," like the Bear, I still have not watched season 3. Season 1 and 2 were so great, and season 3 got such terrible reviews that I'm like, I just don't want that
That
to
was
hinder.
another one I couldn't get in on.
I wish I would have done this with Dexter. I was watching Dexter live
Dexter
as it was
good.
going, and then that final season, it was like, what are we doing here?
Yeah.
The way that they closed it is just not.
Blacklist
not
pissed
good.
me off too because the first 6 seasons were unbelievable, and then the final however
It
many
just
were
became
terrible
repetitive after a while. The reason I ask this is because I started a new episode new season last night. The Pit. Have you guys seen any reviews for this? It's a new hospital show based out of Pittsburgh. It's like this ER in Pittsburgh, and they're basically. The show is framed around a full day. So every episode is another hour from that day for this doctor.
that's clever.
It's been awesome. It's like 24 in that regard. But instead of it
24.
being like, the action, it's just a day in the hospital. It's been great thus far. But I've realized this about myself. I'm a very easy person to please with TV shows. If you've got something that's like a murder mystery, I'm going to watch it. I'm probably going to like it if it's got any amount of dialogue that is well written.
I'm the polar opposite of that, man. Like
If you've got a show that is based in a hospital, I'm probably going to like it. If there's a trial involved, I'm probably going to like it. I am the easiest person to please.
I'm that way with documentaries surrounding like true crime, serial killer stuff because I find that stuff really. There's a 4-piece documentary on this Fox Hollow Farms on Hulu that I watched over the weekend. So, like, I'm easy on that sense, but, like, TV shows like Night Agent or Paradise, man, if you don't get me in by, like, 3 episodes, I'm just not going to give you a chance.
I typically would say, like, I don't feel like I'm that easy, but then I still keep saying this, like, Severance I'm watching, which is in its 2nd season right now. There's been like 15 episodes of this show. I still don't know if I like it or don't like it, but yet I love the concept.
Yeah.
Like just the thought of how it, like what they're doing, the concept of the show. I'm like, this is kind of cool. But like, I still don't know if I really enjoy this or
I
not.
truly judge a book by its cover, and if it's like if I'm not in originally, there's no chance.
Are you
I'm gonna buy
watching
in.
White Lotus?
Nope.
White Lotus is another one that I think is great, and it's because I think it's actually like a well-done show, but it's a murder mystery, so of course I'm going to like it. Like, they've got me hook, line, and sinker. They're going to a resort. Somebody is murdered. Who did it? That's the entire premise of the show.
You are easy.
I'm so simple,
Somebody
man.
was murdered. Who did it? Because, like, I want to binge this.
I will say, another show that we're watching right now, though, and it's not something that I'm necessarily proud of. Do you guys have a guilty pleasure show? Because for me,
No.
I am so in on Love is Blind right now. It's embarrassing. I can't stop watching it. I can't stop, dude. It's horrible TV.
I don't know if
but
I have a guilty
love it
pleasure.
so much. I like get involved. I'm like, oh, no.
I saw you
There's
tweeting
no
about it.
chance Daniel is going to end up marrying her.
Oh, yeah. See, I think the last time I had a guilty pleasure was when I watched The Bachelor with my wife. And I told the story on the Juncture. You guys remember it, where it was the girl that went to Lindenwood with me, and I messaged her, and apparently they didn't. Yeah, the whole thing. That was like the one season I watched it with her, and I'm like, this is awful. If I wasn't invested because of the girl that went to Lindenwood, I probably wouldn't be watching this.
Yeah, I think the last one I had was, but this was when I was like in high school or middle school, was Wipeout. I used to love watching Wipeout.
Great.
So I even bought the like video game for my Nintendo
The Wii
DS.
one?
No, I had it for like Nintendo DS, so I'd like play it all the time on like car rides. I don't know why.
See, I guess I don't have guilty pleasures because I don't feel guilty about anything I watch. Like, I brag to people I watch Bluey without my kids.
Oh, that's different.
It's just
I think a lot of people do that.
It's a fun show.
Yeah. I think that's a little bit different. For me, it's in the summer I watch Big Brother, and around this time of the year I watch Love is Blind.
Yeah.
Those are the two shows that I fall for.
That's pretty bad, man.
With Alex and T-Bone on BK, some people like candy, I like bad TV. Coming up next, can the Blues convince Doug Armstrong not just to stand pat, but also to push at the deadline? We'll talk about it next here on 101 ESPN.
BK and Ferrario are broadcasting live from the E&B Granite Studios at the Centene Community Ice Center on 101 ESPN. E&B Granite, Bernie Federko's only choice for granite countertops, cabinets, and flooring.
Alex and T-Bone on BK. We're broadcasting live from the E&B Granite Studios out of the Centene Community Ice Center. We've got Jordan Deacon back in the studios here for us today. And Alex, I wanted to ask you a question because I think we're beyond the sell at this point because of what they've done, the Blues have done since the Four Nations face-off break. They've had points in 4 consecutive games. They've looked better, honestly, in all 4 games, including 3 against legitimate contenders, Winnipeg, Colorado, and Washington last night. So now it's about, okay, do you hold? Do you you push? What's the plan here at the deadline? Or do you end up getting overwhelmed for a trade for Braden Schenn, something like that, to kind of change the core, similar to like a Stastny kind of a deal, right? You're sending this out even though you're still in it, but you're not really like sell. Can the Blues, based on their performance over the next 3 games, convince Doug Armstrong not just to stick with this group, but to then go out and even add to it via external pieces? Where do you stand on that, Alex?
Yeah, they can, and I think they already have done this. And here's the comp that I have for this, because I was thinking about this last night. January 31st, the Calgary Flames, if you guys remember, pulled off a trade. They traded 2 of their current roster players, Kuzmenko and Pelletier, to the Philadelphia Flyers for 2 young NHL roster players in Morgan Frost and Joel Farabee. And these are 2 guys that 3+ seasons in the NHL, middle 6 wingers. And this was the cut that Craig Conroy said at the press conference following that trade.
It's when you think the deal is right and makes sense for both sides, and we both did. If it was the trade deadline, but for us, we have, you look at our schedule with what we have with the break coming up, and I think the guys deserved a chance.
That quote right there. I think the guys deserved a chance. Do you know what they did to the 8 games leading up to that trade, Calgary?
They went on a run, right?
They were 4-4.
Yeah. Oh, interesting.
They were 4-4.
They went on a run. No.
Goals for, goals against, power play, penalty kill, all middle of the pack in the NHL. And here's why I said what they should tell Doug Armstrong to bring in some help. You know what the Blues have done in the month of February? 8 games, same time frame. They have the 5th best record league. They're top 10 in goals for, goals allowed, power play, and penalty kill.
And to your point, points on what is it, 7 of the last 8?
Yeah.
Win, lose in overtime, lose.
So
win shootout, lose in a shootout, and then win 3.
Yeah. And honestly, the only game that they played probably poorly in was that Edmonton Oilers one. But guess what? Their goaltender saved their bacon in that game.
I think they played poorly against Chicago, but it doesn't matter because they won. So
yeah, well, and they played poorly in the first 5 minutes, and then they pushed themselves back in the game. The Florida Panthers, you gave up a 3rd period goal, the same thing you did against the Winnipeg Jets. So here's why. Calgary, who is in the same position that you are, they weren't even supposed to be a playoff team this year. They were rebuilding, remember? But their team played well, and Craig Conroy looked at it and said they deserve some help because right now the top guys are performing, and we got to go get something that adds some depth to the team. And they did so, and they're still in this race. So if I'm Doug Armstrong, I'm looking at what Calgary did, and I'm saying, okay, why wouldn't we go out and do the same thing? I'm not sitting here saying you need to go out there and trade for Elias Pettersson and give up 15 draft picks to do it. Why wouldn't you be a cautious buyer? Why wouldn't you look at the hole on your team and say, our weakest spot, and frankly, I feel bad saying this right now because Sundqvist has been playing well, but our weakest spot is our 3rd-line center. If we can go out there and find a centerman to play in our top 9 to where Sundqvist isn't relied upon as much, we give ourselves a chance to win. Or at least get to the playoffs, which was the stated goal at the beginning of the season.
1 sec real quick. Jordan, just really quick. Are we good to go on the audio side of things? Okay, we're still good here. Just wanted to make sure we had a couple of people. I know you had great content there. I apologize. It was a hard right pivot for me. Which our audio sometimes when we're out here on Fridays right around this time.
Yeah, 1 o'clock.
I apologize. We got a couple of texts. I wanted to make sure we were still good. So when you say that the Blues could go out there and add, what are you thinking? Because, and I'm not even necessarily asking for a player. Sometimes like Morgan Frost, that's a little bit of a surprise move, right? Yeah. If you were in Doug Armstrong's shoes and you could go out there and be a cautious buyer, you could do like maybe it's what the Cardinals did last year at the deadline where they get Erik, Fetty, and Tommy Pham, which are just complementary pieces, right? Well. Or you do what the Cardinals did. John Lester, just stabilizing forces, and they didn't give up a whole lot. Those are the kinds of things that I'm curious about. Like, what are you looking for? What positionally are you trying to add? Where are you looking? Where are you looking?
A centerman who can do the center position, but also shift him over to the wing. That's where I'm looking at with this one. Sorry, BK doesn't like my take on this, taking his headset off. A centerman who can be the winger, because in my mindset, I'm looking at this saying, right now, what makes me a better competitor? I take Sundqvist out of the lineup, maybe shift him to the wing, or maybe he's just an extra forward for us, and I bring in somebody who provides a little bit more speed, a little bit more punch to that 3rd line. And from there, he's a part of my team moving forward. I brought up Jared McKenna, my Ferrario 5, a couple of days ago. I don't know if Seattle's going to be willing to give that up, but that's a guy who could be a centerman for you for the final 20 games of the season. And then next year, if you feel Dvorsky's ready, McCann could play the wing and score 40 goals for you there. When I look at what you're giving out, so like that's what I think people are more curious about. Like, what am I talking about when I say cautious buyer? What am I giving up? I'm not giving up any of my top prospects. I'm not giving up anything on my NHL roster. I'm talking about this year's 4th-round pick and next year's 3rd-round pick, or 2 years from now his 2nd-round pick, and maybe a lower-level prospect. Something that makes the other side say, hey, we got younger and we got assets that help us in the future, and the Blues are saying we just upgraded our team now. That's what I'm looking at if I'm Doug Armstrong.
The Blues have the cap space to be able to do something, so we'll see what they end up going with here. We do have some audio issues now, so we do apologize for that. Hopefully we're able to get that up and running very shortly. With Alex Ferrario and Tanner Hendrickson, I'm Brandon Kiley. We got Jordan Deacon back in the studio for us today. Coming up next, did Mo just indicate that Brendan Donovan is going to be playing in the outfield this year? We'll talk about it next year on 101 ESPN.
From the Centene Community Ice Center inside the ENB Granite Studios, this is BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN. ENB Granite, Bernie Fedurko's only choice for granite countertops, cabinets, and flooring.
Alongside Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. Everything sounding good now, Alex?
Oh, yeah, it's a Cardinals segment, so you know we're crisp now.
I put that blue segment there for a reason.
I think you paid Jordan Deacon to do that.
She's back in the studio for us as we're broadcasting live at the ENB Granite Studios out at the Centene Community Ice Center. 1 o'clock, that means we got some troubles, but we are back and ready to go. John Mozeliak, I've teased this at least 6 times so far today. We're finally going to talk about it.
Makes sense.
He talked to Ken Rosenthal of The Athletic, and he had the following quote to him. All right, Alex?
Yep.
So what happens this year if the Cardinals are again within reasonable striking distance? Mozeliak, unwilling to deal in hypotheticals, passed on the question, but trading prospects for veterans at that point would run completely counter to what the Cardinals say they are trying to do. Then there's this quote from John Mozeliak. That was from the story. Here's the quote from Mo. This club could be good, or it could struggle. A lot of it depends on how people obviously step up and play. Is Jordan Walker an impact bat? Is Nolan Gorman that middle-of-the-order type of hitter? Is Brendan Donovan an all-star outfielder? Is Wilson Contreras adjusting from catcher to first base, and does the bat come alive even more? There are things that are in question, but if they come around to where we hope, it could be a fun team to watch, end quote. All right. All of that is basically what we've been talking about for, I don't know, the last 6 months, right? Nolan Gorman, middle-of-the-order type of hitter. Walker, an impact bat. Wilson Contreras, does the bat play up a little bit more now that he's not behind the plate and he's playing at first base? All of that stuff we've talked about. And then there's this Brendan Donovan thing.
Yeah, speaking of questions.
Yeah, one of these things is not like the other.
Is Brendan Donovan an all-star outfielder?
Well, is he?
If you guys remember back about a week ago, we had the conversation coming off of Mo going on KMOX with his Sunday hit, and he mentioned something just kind of offhand, and I thought maybe he just misspoke, honestly, where he's like, hey, who's our right fielder? I was like, that's weird.
Shouldn't be Jordan Walker.
Don't you know who your right fielder is? Like, of all places on the field, I feel like there are 2 spots that are definitely locked in. It's right field with Jordan Walker and shortstop with Mason Wynn. There's no question there whatsoever as to who's going to be starting on opening day and then hopefully all the way through game 162 at them. But
and Nolan Arenado,
he said it nonetheless. Brendan Donovan, an all-star outfielder. Alex, there's only one way that happens.
Lars Nootbaar in center field.
So is there are we back to the place where there's potentially a disconnect between the front office and the management? Where
philosophical.
The front office wants Lars Nootbaar to be the center fielder, and the management would like...
Hold on. Are you saying Michael Ciani's going to get traded before the start of the season?
We can't take away their toys.
Or is it AAA? Like Koperniak, hey, congratulations, you made the roster as the 4th outfielder. Ciani and Victor Scott, sorry, boys, the only way that I can get Lars Nootbaar to start in center fields every day is for you to be in AAA. I'm kind of kidding, also kind of serious.
Oh, no, I don't think that's joking. I think that's a serious... Yes, to answer your question, that's exactly what I just heard that you said. John Mozeliak views Brendan Donovan as an everyday outfielder. Ollie Marmol views Brendan Donovan as an everyday second baseman, and one of these things isn't going to work. So, yeah, it's very evident that when John Mozeliak was talking about getting these guys reps in his mind, I think he had every single position filled. Arenado wasn't going to be there. Gorman was at third base. You had Wynn, you had Donovan, you had Contreras, you had Herrera, you had Nootbaar, you had Scott, you had Walker. And then the Arenado, priority 1, 2, and 3 for the Cardinals didn't work out. Oh bleep.
And by the way, you didn't mention Burleson, who in that scenario would have been DH.
Yeah, everything was ready for you. And then it's bleep, now look what we have to do. And so Arenado's there. Gorman shifts to second base. The only logical spot is Brendan Donovan in a corner outfield position. Now, the right field thing, I'm a little unsure about.
I still believe that was a misspeak. I can't imagine that it was.
Well, maybe this is a misspeak as well. Who knows? But yeah,
this is not.
It's Lars Nootbaar.
You can't say that this is a misspeak. Is Brendan Donovan an all-star? Okay, nobody says anything. Nobody even looks at this differently if that's where the sentence ends.
Well, maybe he panicked. Ken Rosenthal's intimidating.
Is Brendan Donovan an all-star outfield? Did he mean Lars Nootbaar? Did he just accidentally say – because he didn't mention Lars Nootbaar in this, and he always mentions Newt when talking about some of the stuff that has to go right for them. So maybe he said Donnie when he meant Newt.
Mo's getting old, but he's not that old to where he makes two big mistakes like this in a week.
And he tried to correct himself, and I could picture Ken Rosenthal running away going, "You said it! It's Brendan Donovan!"
I feel like this is the disconnect between the two. Ollie, as has been the case for 3 years now, especially the last 2, puts an emphasis on defense. And if you're putting an emphasis on defense, what is the best defense on the field for you day to day? Pajes is behind the plate. And Lars Nootbaar is in left field. And Michael Ciani or Victor Scott, most likely Ciani in this scenario, is in center field for you. And that pushes, I feel like these guys are kind of interchangeable, but Gorman or Donovan at second base, and the other is your DH probably every day. That's your best defensive alignment. And my guess is that is the alignment that Ollie Marmol thinks gives him the best chance to win day to day, which is what he would go with. And if you're thinking about it through the 30,000-foot prism, which is what Mo has to have as the president of baseball operations, that doesn't make sense. Because from his perspective, this is not just about 2025 and what allows us to win on that day. It's about how does this set us up for 2026 and beyond. So, hey, Ivan Herrera, that's the guy with the higher upside. Yeah, maybe he's not totally ready right now to be an everyday catcher, but he's close enough in the bat plays. Put him in every day at catcher, basically. Hey, that bat that you see from Lars Nootbaar, it plays in center, and if he's just capable defensively, it allows us to get the greatest number of young players into the lineup as possible, because then you can put Donovan in the outfield, and maybe he becomes an all-star caliber outfielder. You put Gorman at second base. Now Burleson is at DH, and all of your young guys get that opportunity other than the center fielders, and I'm not sure they're convinced that Victor Scott is 100% ready for the big leagues anyways, so don't worry about it. He goes down to AAA, starts every day down there. Ciani's your fourth outfielder, and you're ready to go. I think that's Mo's perspective on this right now, and it's going to be fascinating to see what this means for the opening day roster, man. Normally, I feel like there's not a whole lot of clues or hints on that roster as to what you should expect. The one way he can make this possible is if they just don't carry either of the 2 young center fielders. I think that's a really risky way to build your team, but if he truly wants Newt center every day, it's the only way to make that happen.
What about Donovan in center field?
No, that's not happening.
We've seen second baseman play center field before.
Yeah, that didn't work either.
Yeah, you got hurt pretty quickly in this one.
I think if you're Mo, you will have to explore the idea of whether it be sending Ciani down or being open-minded to trading him. Like Detroit, I think it was Veerling today, got hurt and is going to miss opening day. He plays in the outfield. I wouldn't be shocked if Mo makes a call. Hey, you guys want Michael Ciani? We'll just take cash. And because right now you've got Ollie Marmol, and though Ollie is saying all the right things and does believe in getting some of the younger guys some plate appearances, Ollie's job's to win. Like, that is Ollie Marmol's number one job. It was Craig Berube's number one job when he was in St. Louis, and they went through a retool, and he didn't start playing some of the kids. Remember Neighbors starting off on the fourth line?
It's a hard place to be as a coach.
Yeah,
man.
and you know what happens, though, when you're not following the direction of what the guy that's in charge of the team to have success, you get fired until the next guy comes in and does it.
Or he has to do what Mo did with Matheny, which was, dude, I'm going to take away your toys if you're not going to do what I want, right? Alan Craig, he's not a right fielder for us. Put Tavares out there. No, I like Alan Craig. Fine, Alan Craig's going to Boston.
Yeah.
And that's what you have to do then as the president of baseball operations. You just kind of have to force the manager's hand. And he may get to a spot where that ends up being the case this year with this center field job, because like right now, Siani's in center again today, guys. Like they clearly are doing the whole Nootbaar in center field thing is like once after every
break glass in case of emergency.
Yeah,
he can play out
so
there, and if
far,
we don't bring both center fielders, he'll probably play there 1 out of every 3 days kind of a thing.
Yeah, right now it looks like, because in spring, the way they've been going, it looks like he's going to get a start in center field like once every 5 games. They'll go 2 Siani, 2 Scott, and then boom, 1 for Nootbaar. And that is not, hey, we're giving Noot a shot at center field. That is, hey, we're just making sure he's good with reps in case we do need him.
And another part of this is what Ollie said on TMA when they were out at spring training a few weeks ago. He told them, and my understanding is that this is flat out true, the front office does not tell him how to make that lineup. He gets the roster, and then it is his job day to day to put together whatever the best lineup is, not only for that day, but to map things out, kind of similar to what the Blues do with their goaltending situation. Hey, we got to map this out. How do we get everybody the right playing time? What does this look like? That is Ollie and his coaching staff's job. Mo's job is to construct the 26-man roster. He gives them the players. The coaches then decide how to utilize those players day to day on the field. So if Siani and or Scott are on the opening day roster, it will be up to Ollie to decide how to use them. And based on all of the evidence that we've been given, Ollie will utilize one of them as the everyday center fielder because they are the best defenders and he cares about defense. So if you're Mo, how do you prevent that if you're not going to go back on your word that I'm going to be, basically puppeteering over here? You don't give him that option. You just say, these guys aren't on the roster. You don't have a choice. You have to start Lars Nootbaar or Brendan Donovan or they put Jordan Walker out there in center field every day. I don't care.
Oh, God.
But these are your players that you can go with, and now you make your choice.
Yeah, and I won't blame John Mozeliak for doing that. As much as Ollie does have to win, the Cardinals need to find out what they have. And that was John Mozeliak's number one priority. Figuring out, is Lars Nootbaar an everyday successful player for us? Is Brendan Donovan that? Is Nolan Gorman that? And guess what? You failed as the president of hockey operations. And maybe not failed. You just were unsuccessful of getting rid of Nolan Arenado. So now I have to divert to my second plan, and that's making sure that every one of those guys has a position, like Erik Kratz told us, to where it's like, yep, every single day you're doing this position. And guess what? Spring training are not producing those results with Lars Nootbaar in center field.
314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line from the 314. Guys, this really isn't a problem if Victor Scott is the one that earns it and he's playing in center fields every day. Not necessarily, but what you end up doing there is you're choosing Victor Scott over Alec Burleson. I know it sounds strange because it's not positionally the same, but when Victor Scott goes into the lineup, it pushes Lars Nootbaar to left field. When Lars Nootbaar is in left, it pushes Donovan and Gorman to your decision process at second/DH. And boom, there's your lineup. So Alec Burleson, and maybe you don't care about this, and that's fine, but Alec Burleson then is pushed out of the lineup entirely and has no everyday spot in there, and really very little spot in general. Alec Burleson, despite all of the things that I think are fair critiques about him as a player, he's a really good hitter, man. And he is a guy that is, 23, 24 years old? Mm-hmm. Clearly is a part of this team's plans moving forward. And to just not have him get opportunities, like, are you really sending Alec Burleson potentially down to the minor leagues again so that way he can start every day? I think the answer to that is a resounding no. But I don't know how you get him the at-bats that he needs.
It sounds weird because, I am pro, hey, they should have gotten Burley at-bats. That was the whole point of really the Arenado trade. But if you're not going to get him at-bats because they are stuck with Arenado, long as it's because they're going with a guy that has upside and is a guy that can potentially be Scott, the center fielder of the future for the next 7 years, that. Okay, sure, it's not great. It's pick your poison, but okay, at least that's a guy that could potentially be the center fielder, has upside, can steal probably 40 bases if he gets on base enough, can hit for average, has a little bit of pop. That guy is going to be here long term. No offense, Michael Siani. If you're going that route and that's how Burleson's losing at-bats, okay, now we've got a problem. Because Siani's future in the big leagues, he's just not a hitter. He's a great defensive player. He will have a role for all 30 Major League Baseball teams as a fourth outfielder.
And on the Dodgers, he might be a starting center fielder.
Yeah. Sure.
In certain lineups, he can start for you. But in this lineup where you don't, it's basically like if the Blues have a black hole in one of the spots in their lineup. It's Brandon Saad. You can't handle that because you are a team that is winning, the Blues are, with the pack mentality. So you need everybody to pitch in with 15-plus goals over the course of the season, and you can't have all 15 of those goals come in 3 games.
True.
If you're the Cardinals, if you're going to go with this approach where you really don't have stars in your lineup, everybody has to hit. Everybody has to be above league average offensively, and Michael Ciani just doesn't give you that opportunity. So it doesn't work given the construction of this lineup. If you're the Mets, if you're the last year's Yankees, if you're the Dodgers, if you're the Phillies, you can probably get away with that, where you've got one black hole because you've got stars that are going to be 40+% above league average offensively. That balances it out to where you can then carry a true glove first and glove only player. Cardinals don't have that benefit given what they have elsewhere in their lineup if they hope to be competitive this season. So some interesting decisions that are going to have to be made, and Mo saying that publicly I thought was really interesting. It's not just that it is a thought that Mo is having, and internally it's a discussion that is probably taking place. That's natural, and there's always some dissent among people that are making decisions. That he said publicly almost, to me, puts a little bit of pressure on what Ollie Marmol's going to be doing this year with some of that decision-making process.
Well, one quick thought that I was just thinking of, like, the Washington Nationals are a really good example of this. Like, they're giving James Wood and Dylan Cruz every single starting opportunity next season. There's no this, like, middleman to where it's like, hey, we've got Michael Ciani to give it. Like, they put these guys out there, and they expect them to be everyday corner outfielders.
Can I push back on it a little bit?
Sure, because I don't know much about the Nationals.
They don't have veterans. Like, the Cardinals are in a tough spot because of their veteran players that are good.
But Michael Ciani's not a veteran.
Fair, but all of this is, like, it's a trickle-down effect of Arenado and Contreras being here. Yeah. Because if one of those two players wasn't in the lineup, I hear what you're saying on the Ciani. You're choosing to put him in the lineup, and you don't have to.
Because two of those veterans you're trying to find out about are outfielders that should be in the lineup every single day.
Sure, but if Arenado was traded, none of what we're talking about here is a problem. You can make it work. There's no other decisions that need to be made, and Ciani or Scott could be in the lineup.
He never did, but if you did trade Contreras,
correct. Now Burleson's your first baseman, and you don't have to worry about it there as well. And it's just like Gorman is probably your DH in that scenario. So the veterans that you have in this lineup have really limited what your flexibility is and what the potential is to be able to get all of the young guys into the lineup that you want to, unless you move Lars Newbar to center field.
And the reason they're not doing it is because they're afraid of it. They're afraid Lars is going to get hurt.
And defense. Yeah, it's those two things.
Again, you were good defensively last year, and you missed the playoffs.
Yeah. And that goes to my second one, because I agree on what you're saying. They don't have veterans. The other one for me is they've publicly said, like, we're in a rebuild. We're going to stay.
Refresh.
Well, no. Washington said it's a rebuild. So when it's a rebuild, who cares? We know we're losing. We're building the roster to lose 100 games. The Cardinals said, that first month, if we're competitive, we can get fans out there. This is a retool, a transition, a refresh. They're doing that because they don't want to go through that. And by doing that, you fall into this trap.
Final thing on this. The reason why I actually would go offense first instead of defense first this year is because you don't have those young pitchers already established in your rotation. Next year, it'll be different. Next year, I want the best defense possible behind my young guys so they don't end up having spots where you get into an inning and it blows up on them through no fault of their own. And then they potentially lose some confidence there. They lose belief in the defenders that are behind them. That can be a little bit of a snowball effect on a starter. Right now, your starting rotation is mostly veterans. It's guys that have been there, done that before. And if they end up having, like, if Lars boots a ball in center field, if Herrera is not the best game caller and he's a guy that's back there not stealing the strikes for you, sorry, Michaelis, deal with it. Sorry, Matt, deal with it. Sorry, Sonny, deal with it. Like, all of those guys have been through the grind of this before, and they should be able to overcome it mentally. When McGreevy gets up, when Quinn Matthews gets up, when Cooper Jerpy gets up, when TK Roby and Tink Hintz are a part of this thing, Graceffo is a part of this thing, that becomes a little difference to me. But right now you have a veteran-laden starting pitching rotation to where if you don't have your best defense out there, it shouldn't be the end of the world for them mentally as much as physically. With Alex and T-Bone on BK, one's got to go coming up next. You guys give us 4 scenarios. We'll tell you which one's got to go here on BK and Ferrario.
101 ESPN Sports Center.
I'm Jordan Deacon. The Sports Center update is driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. It's a busy time in St. Louis sports, kicking off with the Cardinals that are at spring training. Yesterday, they won 8-4 over the Marlins. Right now, they are in action with the bottom of the fifth, losing 2-0 to the Astros. And tomorrow, they'll take on the Nationals with first pitch at 12:05. As for the Blues, they won last night against Washington 5-2. They're off today and back in action tomorrow for a back-to-back home and away weekend. The Kings come into town on Saturday with pregame at 6 o'clock and puck drop at 7. And then the Blues will travel to Dallas to take on the Stars with pregame at 4 and puck drop at 5 on Sunday right here on your home for the Blues, 101 ESPN. And topping it all off, STL City is playing in San Diego, taking on San Diego FC tomorrow at 9:30. I'm Jordan Deacon. The Sports Center update was driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. See them at londoff.com. Chevy, together we drive. Are you kidding me?
This is BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN. We're broadcasting live from the E&B Granite Studios at the Centene Community Ice Center. E&B Granite, Bernie Fedurko's only choice for granite countertops, cabinets, and flooring. This is BK and Ferrario. Time now for One's Gotta Go. We offer up the talking points, and you get to pick which one's gotta go on 101 ESPN.
Count that big pen.
Can I read you guys a quote real quick? This comes from Luther Burden at the NFL Combine.
All right.
We'll get to One's Gotta Go here in just a moment.
And I'd rather play One's Gotta Go.
Yeah, I would much rather do that, but sure.
He was asked a question. What's your biggest takeaway from your 3 years with Eli Drinkwitz as your head coach? 1. Biggest takeaway? I'll say everything's not going to be sunshine and rainbows. You got to fight the storm back when there's dark.
Is that a Batman quote?
That feels like something out of Shel Silverstein's
That sounds like something
poems.
Christian Bale said.
Yeah.
I think what he's trying to say there is, hey, listen, man, our first year sucked, and we fought back, and everything after that was great, but, man, I had to weather that storm, and it was brutal. It just makes it seem like when you say it that way, yeah, I hated my time at Mizzou.
Yeah.
I don't believe that to be the case. I truly do not. But some of the things that he has said over the last 24 hours at the media availability for the Combine have not exactly been, like, glowing remarks.
Wow.
And I think some of that is just, like, it's Luther. But
he's trying to be a top 5 pick, and you know how you do that when you don't have success with the college team you were on. You say, well, like, that team sucked. That was the best part of it. So,
dude, I don't know that he's going to go in round 1. All of the buzz seems to be that he's not going to be a round 1 player. He better have a really good Combine.
yeah, I was going to say, I don't know if I would go round 1 with him either.
I think he's that, like, late first, early second type of player to me.
I think if I'm going middle or top round 1, I want a big difference maker, and I don't know if Luther Burden's
All right, let's get to One's Gotta Go. You give us 4 different options. We'll tell you which one's got to go. 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line from the 314. One's Gotta Go partying edition. You go to a bar, a club, stay home, or go to a beer hall. Bar, club, stay home, or beer hall. Which one's got to go, Alex?
Is a beer hall like a bingo hall?
No, like let's call it a brewery.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'll go stay home.
That one's got to go?
Oh, no. Sorry.
I was like, there's no chance.
My mind. Yeah, no.
You know the game, right?
The club's got to go. There's no freaking way I'm going to a club.
Yeah, that's the one for me as well.
No way.
I'd agree. I'd go club. They're so loud. It can be hard to hear sometimes, so I'm out.
Welcome to the club, Grandpa.
So
I would still go.
Which person on our station, other than Jamie Rivers, is most likely to go to a club?
Marsh Jackson.
You think?
Yeah. It would be a tied for first out of those guys.
I would say Marsh is definitely above Jackson.
I think so,
regard.
too.
I think Jackson would go to a club with a group.
Yeah.
I could see that, for sure.
Like, I think Jackson, if group calls up, says, Jackson, we're going to a club. All right, cool, I'm in.
Who is the last person on this station that you could see going to a club?
Other than
would
me?
be the most hesitant on the station out of anybody.
Doug Vaughn. That one was easy. That one was super simple.
Yeah.
I'm probably right there tied with Doug, though, at the bottom.
I think you're pretty close.
Like, I'm Doug, just 30 years old, 34 years old.
Yeah, you're going to wait another 30 years to get all the way there, but you're step by step getting there.
As soon as kids leave the house in 21 years, I'm there.
All right, 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line for One's Gotta Go. One's Gotta Go Spring Sports Edition, the Masters, NCAA Tournament, or the opening of the baseball season. Which of those three has to go? Masters, NCAA Tournament, or the open of the baseball season? You're not going to like mine, T-Bone.
You're not going to like mine.
It's the opening of the baseball season.
Mine too.
What?
Those other two are like unbelievable events. The opening of the baseball season. Like, if it had to start another 2 weeks later, I'd be fine with it. I can't live without the Masters of the NCAA.
Yeah, you can start in June. I can't live without. I have to have the Masters. Like that is a weekend of just nothing.
Somebody said the last person to go to the club would be Tim. He takes his sleeping pills and is out by 9 p.m. I didn't know that about Tim. I feel like Tim, if you got him out on a weekend, we could probably get him on a random
I could get
Saturday.
Doug to a club, or I could get Tim to a club. I can't get Doug to a club.
I would still get rid of the Masters.
You're crazy.
I'm so sorry, St. Louis, you baseball heaven, that these two got rid of opening
Yeah,
day.
it used to be baseball heaven.
Yeah, clearly the fans aren't feeling that right now. But
dude, nothing screams spring more than the Masters.
I cannot get excited for golf at all. Like, I cannot watch it. Like, the Masters, you guys could text me and be like, Tiger's, like, roared back. He was down by 6 strokes.
Nice.
He's got a chance here on this hole to come back and win the Masters, and my response would be, I'd rather watch a baseball game.
Dude,
I'd rather do something else. I cannot watch golf.
Dude,
it is
there's
so boring.
162 of those games.
It's right there with tennis, and I played tennis in college. I cannot watch tennis.
There's 162 of them. There's only like 3 days worth of Masters
so much
content for you.
strategy in baseball. I love it.
You don't think there's strategy?
There's plenty of strategy in golf, man.
All right, 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line for One's Gotta Go. One's Gotta Go trade edition. Cardinals trade to acquire Adam Wainwright. Blues trade to acquire Ryan O'Reilly. Okay, never mind. I thought this said Blues trade to acquire Falk. I thought they were talking about Justin Falk. Rams trade to acquire Marshall Falk. I was like, come on, this isn't fair. 2 of those are like all-time greats within their organization, and now we're putting up Justin Falk against them. That's unfair. Yeah. Falketeers, I understand. You guys are big fans of your boy, but let's be real here.
I don't know what the noise would be for a Falketeer.
So trading for Waino, trading for Ryan O'Reilly, trading for Falk. Which one has to go?
Ooh, jeez.
That's a tough one.
That is a tough one because all 3 of them were critical in terms of a championship.
Correct.
I think I would go Marshall Falk, that trade. And it sucks because shorter span, and they're not here anymore. Yeah. And it sucks because you take it away.
Like, you still have Warner, and that
you still had an incredible offense even without Marshall Falk. You had Pace, Bruce, Holt, Warner. Man, you take O'Reilly out, you don't even get to the second round of the playoffs. You take Waino out, you don't win a championship in 06. So I think I'll get rid of Falk.
All right,
Marshall, by the way.
I think that's a correct answer.
It sucks because
the
I hate it.
of Waino puts him to me in a separate category from the other 2. Waino, ended up getting
Waino's an easy
16 years out of him.
Yeah,
is that
legend.
Right? 17 years
the thing that makes it tough for me on Waino, and I think I would still go Falk, is yes, he did get a championship as a closer.
But he was one of the 7 best pitchers in the history of the organization, probably.
Yeah, but he never won a World Series as, like, a starting pitcher, you know? And, like, as a bullpen arm, like, as a rookie is impressive. Like, I'm not trying to take anything.
But he got you to a World Series as a starting pitcher.
And to me, it goes beyond that, and I'm going to sound like an old sap right now. Yeah. Like, Waino was a part of the fabric of this community for almost 2 decades, basically. So it's hard for me to say, like, that guy would go over Ryan O'Reilly or Marshall Falk. Falk, who, like, never comes back here for the most part anymore. Although he is doing an event coming up. Did you hear about that?
That is the worst
Martin
plug
Kilcoyne,
I've ever heard.
He's doing an event with Martin Kilcoyne,
and he's coaching in Colorado.
He's coach. Ryan O'Reilly also, yes, it was unbelievable, but it was 5 years of him being here in St. Louis. Yeah. So that to me would have gone.
And I can almost guarantee you that when Ryan O'Reilly calls it a career, is going to be a mainstay in St. Louis.
Yeah.
Just for the type of guy he is and the roots that he laid down when he was here. I
don't know. I bet you he loves Nashville. I'm being serious about that.
No.
Like, he probably fits that city very well because of the music.
Saying he doesn't want to be traded?
No, because of the music.
Oh.
No, he probably wants to be traded. Barry Trotz is saying he doesn't want to be traded.
All right, with Alex and T-Bone on BK coming up next, we'll hit the rewind, put a bow on this thing. You're on BK and Ferrario.
live from the Centene Community Ice Center inside the E&B Granite Studios. This is BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN. E&B Granite, Bernie Federko's only choice for granite countertops, cabinets, and flooring. Let's run it back with a daily rewind on BK and Ferrario. Brought to you by Gloria Lou, your home sold guaranteed realty. Selling your home begins at GloriaHasTheBuyers.com.
And T-Bone on BK. It's BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. Shout out to Jordan Deacon, who did a fantastic job for us back in the studio today. If you guys missed any of our show, be sure to check it out on the podcast page, 101ESPN.com, and the free 101 ESPN app is where you go to find it. It's all presented by
Schaefer Door Company.
That 101 ESPN app is free to download, super easy to use, and you can always check that out. It's presented by Dobbs Tire and Auto Centers. Earlier today, we had Mike McKenna. We talked with Erik Kratz as well. He told us he believes that the Cardinals are going to finish fifth in the NL Central. He did have some positives, though. He said J.J. Weatherholt is the talk of camp. He can't get anybody to shut up around the Cardinals about him. So some real excitement for the Cardinals about J.J. Weatherholt.
You know, we found out that the Cardinals actually did make a roster move, according to their front office.
That's correct. Nick Anderson, who Alex forgot was Nick Anderson and thought that he was Nick Robertson.
Sometimes
All right.
Nick Anderson
Let's go through a few things before we get out of here today. Alex, Blues back in action this weekend. Two big games, L.A. and Dallas. L.A. at home, Dallas on the road. I'm sure you'll see probably Benner tomorrow and Hofer on Sunday. That'd be my guess, at least, with the way they split this thing up. What are you looking for this weekend between those two games?
Consistency, continuing what you've done for the last 4 games. This team has played well in their last 8. They've picked up points in 7 of them. You have to get points in both of these games. You've got to get at least 3 of a possible 4 points to continue this momentum, because if you drop the game tomorrow against LA in regulation, is it the end of the world? No, but then you have to rebound with a victory against the Dallas Stars.
T-Bone, your Illini back in action on Sunday. They're taking on Michigan on the road, a projected loss for them. They did look good against Iowa, and if you want to have an optimistic tilt toward this team, you could say, hey, they had a lot of sickness issues. Like, they literally, the team was sick. Is there any way that they can get you back on board with the way that they play over their next couple?
No.
Okay.
No. They just stink.
They were sick.
I'm out on this team. I think they're going home in the first weekend of the tournament.
Okay, Missouri back in action tomorrow. Team that we are
team I'm
actually
in on,
bought in.
Yeah, we're in on them.
Sneaky tough game tomorrow on the road at Vanderbilt.
Last time they lost.
I think this is another one that you should be on the lookout for if you're a Missouri fan. I think they win it. I think it's going to be a really close game, though. Vandy is frisky, and road games in the SEC are incredibly difficult. So do not overlook this game. Vanderbilt is a very good team. They have an incredibly efficient offense, and they do not turn the ball over ever, which is something that Missouri likes to do. So Missouri can't get out in transition. It could make for a potentially long day in that one. For Alex Ferrario and Tanner Hendrickson, I'm Brandon Kiley. Coming up at 5 o'clock, the Fast Lane will have Jim Montgomery. They're doing a Freedom Friday today, so you'll be able to choose their topics. If you want to start things out, get your text in right now. 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line to do so. Shout out once again to Jordan Deacon back in the studio for us. Thank you all so very much for listening. We'll certainly be back on Monday at 11 a.m. Until then, the Fast Lane coming up next here on 101 ESPN.